75 years old, and I still wake up with a little guy saluting me.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy.
You wanted this, right? You wanted the real deal? That's what this is. Wake up. You're in the middle of it.
You better wake up and listen to what you're saying.
Which is a morning show. Wake up.
What the hell? Wake up, everyone.
All right, let's get it going on this Friday. Hanging out with you on the Fan, 93.5, 107.5. The Fan, it's the Wake Up Call. No KB today. I'm Andy Sweeney hanging out with you. We got you for the next 3 hours. James Boyd sitting in studio. He did the midday show yesterday. He's a versatile man. That's what he is. Now he's in here in the mornings.
Well, Kevin had to take off because of Tiger Woods' 8 over par yesterday.
Well, I noticed, by the way, I walk in here to the station, and I noticed since there's no Kevin Bowen today that we don't have the TV going.
Yeah.
We don't have the Open Championship. Well, I feel like we need to have that going.
Well, I'll throw it on then.
So I can see how Shane Lowry's doing. Have you seen, by the way, the Open Championship leaderboard? James, I don't know if you follow any of this. It's the most horrific leaderboard in the history of golf right now. I don't know if you care about golf. I don't know if you follow golf at all. But we got Daniel Brown, Dean Burmeister, Mackenzie Hughes, and Joe Dean at the top of the leaderboard right now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm not against golf. I just don't know any of these players.
Well,
so
no one knows any of the players.
Yeah, very casual viewer. Obviously, Tiger Woods is, household name. But beyond that, I'm not too familiar behind, Scotty Scheffler and a few others, and Rory McIlroy. But if it isn't those guys, I'm not.
Listen, Tiger's going to miss this cut by like 30 strokes. And I don't know how we do it, but next week, Mark, we need to have some sort of intervention with Kevin Bowen over the Tiger Woods stuff.
And I thought it was hilarious that yesterday he was cackling at Bryson DeChambeau's first round, and then Tiger did 3 worse than he did. And I'm like, well, that was karma. That hit you right in the mouth.
Yeah.
And then, but he was very cocky heading in. Oh, Tiger Woods is going to do this. He's going to win it, this and that. And then he saw the wind, and he's like, oh, this is horrible. He was going through the 12-step program.
Yeah, many years ago, this could have been 10 years ago, James, I followed Louisville football head coach by the name of Charlie Strong, who I liked a great deal. He went to Texas. He fizzled out because he didn't fit Texas at all. But he used to pull the team off the field, and he called it fake juice before games. And I hate to say it, but I feel like, Mark, that's what Kevin Bowen is giving us around these majors with Tiger Woods. Mm-hmm. He's giving us fake juice. So we'll keep you updated.
It's hope and a prayer, basically.
With the Open Championship. Listen, it was an ugly game of Pacers Summer League yesterday, so I'm not sure how much we'll talk about that. It's funny. I'm sure, James, you fall into this mode all the time. Where it's like, I know I got to talk about something. I know I got to write about something, but I'm tired of talking about something. I'm tired of writing about something. Probably some of the AR injury stuff over the last year the last 8 months, 9 months has probably been there with you. But at some point you got to talk about it. That's how I feel a little bit with Jarris Walker now. Mark, it's funny. I was, last night of this morning getting ready for the show. I'm like, I don't know if I have another Jarris Walker take in me. Okay. He had a double-double. The Pacers Summer League team, wolf when it comes to shooting. Just cannot shoot the basketball. So a double-double for Jarris Walker. I did see, whether it be the Indy Star or other entities on the internet, a lot of people think he earned his way to get into some sort of rotation for the Pacers. So I don't know if KB and I agree with that. I don't really know where I stand with Jarris Walker. So we can dive into that as well. I guess I should say, though, to start things off, Mark, I know you had to go pick up your kids. You had some things change on you. James, You were there helping out with the midday show. Now, you'll love this, Mark. I mean, they had your boy Jake Query running all over the place.
Oh, yeah.
And I did show up, and he goes, I just found out I have to give a speech. he had 6 pieces of paper.
Yeah, that is the most Jake thing ever.
In his hand. So he did a great job. And listen, I mean, it was Franciscan Health and Jim Beam and everything else that was out there. It was fantastic. It was a great time. Had a Jack and Coke out there. Had a few Jack and Cokes out there. So it was a lot of fun out there at the back 9. yesterday. Appreciate all the listeners that came out, all the sponsors that were there. Hung out with the Horizon League people for quite a while. You know, they're headquartered right here, so we're going to be doing some more with them. I met your guy, Sean Sullivan, who you worked with like 20 years ago. Met him. We got a hat. My man
Love
CB
Sean.
made us a hat for the wake-up call. So now you didn't stick around, James. I noticed you got off the air at 3 o'clock, and then you were gone.
I stuck around for a little bit, talked to Bill Brooks and some others, JJ Stankovich from Colts.com.
Now, I think JJ brought his own golf clubs in.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
the entire bag.
They might be pretty serious over there with the Colts.
The Colts were the most serious pod, if I'm not mistaken, at back nine yesterday.
Yeah, so it was a lot of fun. And
well,
then I
good
had
for
to,
them.
you know, like I told you off air before we got on this morning, but I had to dip out to go to an event for Anthony Richardson where he was at Speedway High School giving away helmets, and all the kids lost their mind because they got
because Anthony Richardson showed up.
I mean, yeah, you got to meet QB1 for the Colts franchise, and probably one of the coolest QBs in the league is just as far as, you know, the youthfulness of him and him being a few years removed from high school himself.
Yeah, our guys overnight did cut, I guess, what is it? It's a 5-second sound. You want to get that, Mark? A 5-second sound of Anthony Richardson. They gave you credit on it that he's good to go. Go ahead, Mark. Give me this. This is what we have.
You'll see next week once I'm slinging that thing again. So, you know, just stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Yeah, I was the guy, and I joked about it before I headed over there. I was like, I'm going to be the jerk that asked him about his shoulder at the kids' event. Like, I mean, I'll get all the other questions in there. How great is it to show up? But
sure.
I mean, hey, man, everyone's wondering, so might as well ask.
No, I can't wait. And then, you know, really next week for you starts the grind, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I hope you got did you get your vacation in?
I did. I got a
June or
chance
July?
to see my family the last couple of weeks. Technically still on vacation right now. I guess it's the last day of vacation. But I've enjoyed, you know, seeing the family and taking the foot off the gas. And obviously, like you just mentioned, next week we hit the ground running, and there's like no let up until, you know, early next year.
Yeah, well, I hate to tell you, it's not when you're waking up this early and doing radio, it's not a day off. So we appreciate James Boyd from The Athletic hanging out with us. But again, with all the happenings yesterday, at the golf outing was absolutely fantastic. So I know, you know, last year it was my first event. Now it was more in August, if I'm not mistaken. It was my first event with the station. I was not nearly as awkward as I was last year this time around. So it was a lot of fun. You didn't stay probably for this. You saw the sports radio animals gather around JMV when he was breaking things down yesterday. Mark, you would have loved that as well. By the way, I am kind of mildly surprised that, Mark, I didn't get a text. I thought about texting Mark this morning. And, Mark, you didn't even know about this. And James and I were talking about this right before we went on the air. There is if you're just waking up with us, there is some sort of widespread IT issue that is going on in the United States. And it's more of a Microsoft thing, but I even know, like, credit card, like if you try to go to some of these local gas stations, you might find out this morning that the credit card machines are either down, or they have been down, or they're coming back online, or something like that. And then, I mean, I know one person, there's several people that are being affected by travel right now. So the airlines are all backed up. So there's some sort of IT outage that happened overnight, and I'm low-key surprised, Mark. It hasn't affected us here at Radio 1 at all, has it?
Well, that's what I'm seeing on Twitter, is everyone complaining that the IT outage is not affecting their job. They're like, of course.
Well, of course.
My job
right.
is not affected.
Only if you're going to do something like go on vacation.
Yeah.
It's only going to screw you if you go on vacation. Your work will be fine, but it's a vacation. You guys remember, what was it, a couple months ago? And James, I don't know if you have AT&T or Verizon or what carrier you have. Remember when AT&T was down?
I do.
And for 24 hours.
You know what was funny? I laughed at Stephen Holder, who covers the Colts for ESPN, because he has AT&T and I have Verizon, so I was telling him.
Was anything going on that day?
No, nothing much, but just me trolling him. So I was like, whenever you get these messages, you'll see that I'm laughing at you.
Speaking of, I had a buddy text me early this morning. Speaking of, it's funny, you know, we have training camps coming up next week, and we will be out there. By the way, the show will be out there on Wednesday for the move-in day. Okay,
Nice.
We'll be out there for the move-in day. Probably hope to catch up, with some players as they check in, and then practice and everything gets going on Thursday. And so again, I believe you can claim tickets Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. James, is a free day. But on Saturday and Sunday, you're going to have to pay the $5 to get out there to Westfield. So that's going to be a lot of fun. I was invited yesterday to go to with a listener. I don't know if he wants me to say his name or not, to the Colts-Texans game week 1. So me and my wife have accepted that. So I will not be in the press box for that. I'll be making fun of you guys having your halftime slice of pizza and salad.
I mean,
and that's a big game, by the way.
Look, you
Talk
don't
about
have
an
to.
opener.
You get to just enjoy the game. That's the part people don't understand. Is like you go to games for free, but it's like once it ends is when our day kind of starts. But I'm excited for obviously that week 1 matchup because of a few things. It's a division matchup against what some people believe is a dark horse Super Bowl candidate. Maybe not even dark horse at this point because Houston has been, raved about all offseason.
They're the sexy team to love.
That's a good way to put it.
Are they not?
Oh, absolutely. And then on top of that, I talked about it yesterday on the midday show, Korean Company. They have to end some of these streaks. Like, you want things to feel different. How about you win a season opener for once?
Right.
They haven't done that since 2013.
Yeah, if you want things to feel different, they got to be different. And you got to do it at some point. So here's how we'll set things up today. Coming up in about 25 minutes, you mentioned the Texans, you mentioned C.J. Stroud. Peyton Manning went on with Pat McAfee yesterday and praised C.J. Stroud. We'll give you that sound and then a couple different, and you know this, I mean, you've done this on The Athletic over the last couple weeks, and that is, it is list season, right? You got to have a good list going into the football season. You got to have about 17 different lists. So I have a couple thoughts on things that you've written about, obviously, there on The Athletic, and some of the things that we've talked about here on The Fan, including a quarterback list. What would it take AR to be on that? And just quickly for me, there's tons that we can get to. Obviously, the Open Championship, our Tiger intervention. I want to get your thoughts on the Fever. We gotta talk. It has been Caitlin Clark now the last 2 days on national radio has been the lead. Which the game the other night where she has the 19 assists. And, of course, immediately, James, everybody goes to mocking Team USA for not taking her and putting her on the team as she's lighting things up in the WNBA. And, by the way, has proven that she doesn't only need to score to affect the game. And I think
she's special.
I think that is key. So I want to get your thoughts on the Fever. And then KB and I did, and you have done similar things. So I want to be clear. It's a jumping off point for our conversation. But, we did a list this week of our most indispensable Colts. And I don't think KB agreed with me, which is fantastic. We probably need more disagreement, quite frankly, on the show. But just where I stand, going into next week, and we'll do even more of this on Monday when obviously it's the week of training camp and everything else. But, for me, this season, and listen, there are a lot of storylines. I mean, will a guy like Jelani Woods break out at tight end and be able to stay healthy? I think it's very interesting. The defensive lineman alignment, if you will. How will that look? How will they mix in a guy like Latu? Is this a guy that can get 8 or 9 sacks next year, in big times? That's been the problem for the Colts. They've got to the quarterback, but it's been in those timely fourth quarter times that they haven't. And obviously they got screwed over in the Cleveland game last year. I think so, at least. But, so there are a lot of questions. I don't want to make it sound like, backup running back. If Jonathan Taylor misses 3 games this season, is that good enough? They didn't really draft anybody. They're kind of rolling with some guys that have had either very little success or no success in the NFL. So there's a lot to talk about. For me, the 2 items, and we'll talk about this as we go, that matter more to me. I put Anthony Richardson at the top of my list yesterday for most indispensable Colt. And the kickback was, well, Joe Flacco is a really good backup, and if you gave me Joe Flacco, the drop-off isn't that great. He can throw the deep ball. Gardner Minshew could not do that. It's just something he could not do. It just wasn't his game last year. But to me, James, there's 2 things that stick out for me as we sit here getting ready on the weekend before we get to training camp and football really gets going around here is Anthony Richardson. You say, well, duh, Sweeney, Anthony Richardson. But, at some point, 9-8's not going to be good enough.
Yeah, I agree.
And to me, we've reached that point. This is year 2. He had the entire, where he misses basically all of last year. And we get it. And we, injuries happen in football, but at some point, it's go time. And so for me, that's how I feel with Anthony Richardson, that it's go time. If we're going to do this thing, if you are going to be staying healthy, if that's, if you are going to show what you're all about in the NFL, if the Colts are going to take that next step and win those 1 or 2 games that can swing your entire season, it's time to do so. And then secondly, for me, Chris Ballard is able to, I don't want to say run away from some issues because that would be the wrong way, but he is able, there are sometimes, last year Anthony Richardson gets injured and there is a valid excuse, right? Things happen in sports where it's like, I can't really control that. We try to control it as a coaching staff or a general manager, but there's just things you cannot control. And sometimes, not all the time, sometimes it's incompetency, sometimes it's bad luck. And the Richardson stuff last year was bad luck. But this year, if the defensive backfield for the Colts gets exposed, that's not bad luck, okay? That is, and you know that. I mean, that's something you're probably going to be writing a lot about. And there might be some battles there at safety and corner. Probably not safety with Julian Blackman back. But those are the two things as we sit here, James, on this Friday going into training camp week next week is, hey, what about the defensive backfield? And then listen, I know like A.D. Mitchell and Alec Pierce and all that. Those are big stories that we'll talk about. But it's all about, to me, can you stop the pass when you saw that be exploited at times last year, specifically in the final week of the season? And then go time for Anthony Richardson. I think that's now.
Yeah, I would agree. I think that you starting off your list with most indispensable Colts with Anthony Richardson is accurate. I know it probably isn't the deepest or most thought out pick, but it doesn't have to be to me. I think that this year is huge, not only for him, but for the franchise, because to me, I look at this, and maybe you can chime in, Andy. I look at it like, regardless of how he plays, obviously you want him to play well if you're the Colts, he has to play.
Right.
Like, you want to have some answers after this season is what I'm saying. Like, it would be very unfortunate for the Colts to trot him out this year. He plays 5 or 6 games, and then he's out again for an extended period of time, and you don't know what you really have, and you're then at that point you're going into year 3. So I think regardless of how he plays, get out there, play 15 games or up. Obviously you want to see him play all of them, and then you're able to at least evaluate what you have in him, whether he's a good quarterback, bad quarterback, average quarterback, still growing, whatever the case may be. I think he can be a good to great quarterback, but again, all of it is can be or maybe or we'll see because we haven't seen enough of it yet. I can't sit here and say confidently, oh, he's going to just automatically click this year. He's going to take off. We saw, a number of young quarterbacks throughout this league really take off. I can't say that Anthony is going to be automatically the next one. I haven't seen enough. I mean, it was 4 games, and although they were promising, they were also such a small sample size that I don't even know how he'll react to having a bad game. He hasn't really had a bad game yet. And it's going to happen because of the NFL, and it's hard. And so I would like to see how he responds after that 3 turnover performance that's going to happen at some point. And then we see, okay, what is he made of mentally, obviously physically, those things, staying healthy, making the right decisions. So either way, I'm excited. And I think for him, he's excited to get back out there and to hopefully, again, stay healthy because then you won't have to answer questions about your shoulder at a giveaway for helmets at a high school. and I feel kind of bad asking it, but at the same time, it's like everyone in Indianapolis is thinking about your shoulder, and I know you're probably thinking about it as well.
Well, think of the last time he had to take a day off of the minicamp because of shoulder soreness.
And that's where I started it. Yeah. I was like, hey, how are you feeling? He said he's fine. And obviously, we saw his agent post the video of him dunking at the Nike campus, and part of me is like, man, this is like a catch-22 because if you ever have any rest day or soreness or a day where you're not throwing full bore, people are going to be like, well, you had all the energy to be dunking at Nike, so what are you doing now? So I just feel like, the quicker we can get to the season with him playing and extended period of time, the quicker we can put some of his health things, hopefully behind us.
By the way, Mark, you'll like this. I'm just looking on Twitter. A minute ago, Awful Announcing put this up. So I guess, we talked about it at the beginning of the show. There's this huge IT outage that ESPN, and we don't have the big 80-inch TV behind us on, but SportsCenter is unable to air right now on ESPN or ESPN2 because of the IT outage. so they had to put the ESPN radio simulcast on all of their stations right now.
Yeah, so their work is being affected.
That's
today.
unbelievable.
Ours is so far so good.
That's just unbelievable.
Yeah, like knock on some wood here so we can keep bringing some
content.
Yeah, exactly, to our listeners out there for their morning drives.
Oh, goodness. By the way, speaking of morning drives, God bless some of the people that are sitting in traffic. It took me I left at like 4:15 yesterday, the back 9, and I live in Irvington, and it took almost an hour to get home. It took every bit of 45 minutes, 50 minutes to get home. That's like 4.5 miles, James. That's what that is. There's no good way to go either. You can't go the back way because all the semis are going the back way because they don't want to deal with the interstate. And then the rest of us are sitting in traffic on the interstate.
Yeah,
so
Jimmy Cook was complaining to me about his drive home and his favorite street being shut down. And I was just thinking, brother, I cannot relate. I stay literally a few minutes away from downtown, so it wasn't a bad drive for me at all.
I'm sure you were fine.
I don't know if I have a favorite street of anything.
That's what I'm saying. I feel like my favorite street is the one that gets me quickest home, whichever street that is.
Oh, wait, you said Jimmy, his favorite street? Is that what you said?
Yeah, he was telling me I love going that way
seat?
home, and I'm like, all right, Jimmy, like whatever floats your boat, my friend, but that's my guy.
I don't think anyone else in Indianapolis has a favorite street.
I feel like I have least favorite streets because out here in Indianapolis, I love my city, but my goodness, the potholes out here are crazy. So I don't have a favorite street because every time you get one, it's filled with potholes.
Yeah, there's one on New York Street right now or Washington, excuse me, that I drive, that I swerve around every morning. One did during the winter. One did take my tire right off, James.
When you memorize the potholes,
I know, brother.
You're truly in Indianapolis at that point.
Yeah, you're used to the city once you do that. During the winter, that's exactly what happened. By the way, speaking of, I got up this morning, it was 57 degrees.
Yeah, I got a long sleeve on. I was like, what is this? Is this fall?
Some football weather going on. So we'll do a lot of that. Coming up at 8 o'clock, Bob Costas. We had him on in the 9 o'clock hour yesterday. Fantastic conversation with the Broadcasting Hall of Famer. We want to let you hear part of that again. I know some people missed that, haven't heard on the podcast and everything else. So we'll give you the Bob Costas conversation coming up at 8 o'clock. Doug Boles over at IMS. Obviously, it's Brickyard weekend. We'll talk with him coming up at 9 o'clock. All right, on the other end, the sounds from yesterday's summer game. What did Jarris Walker say? We'll give you that sound. MLB is back. We'll give you some scores as well. Your morning check down, it's coming up next. Appreciate you hanging out with us until 10 o'clock. Wake up call 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. Season tickets are on sale now. Order by August 1st for your shot at the best seats in Hinkle Fieldhouse. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
All right, even though we're a sports show, I guess we'll help people out. By the way, James Boyd in for KB today. I guess we'll help people out. I am seeing on the internet there's people sleeping on couches at the Indianapolis airport. So if you're flying today, again, there's a huge IT outage that's just screwing up air travel everywhere. So they say to call before you even get to the airport. I'm not exactly sure, guys, who you call. Call somebody.
Anytime I've called an airline, I've been on hold for like 5.5 hours.
I was going to say, that sounds like an awful plane.
It might be quicker just to go there and sleep a couple hours in the concourse than try to call Delta Airlines with everything going down. I'm just telling people it ain't good out there, apparently. So it's not affecting us. Hopefully it's not affecting you and your drive to work if you're working on this. What I think is going to be a pretty beautiful weekend. Low 80s. We'll talk with Doug Boles later on coming up at 9 o'clock. Looks like a great weekend for the Brickyard. I mean, you're talking 80s. You might have the sun go behind the clouds for a few hours.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is nothing like the weather they had for the 500, obviously.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong about that. All right, let's jump in to your morning check down. Let's start with the Pacers. Pacers Summer League now, James, 1-3 on the quick 4 games here. You know, the wins-loss doesn't really matter too much. You really want to see how a couple guys are going to play, and that's what we saw yesterday. So the Pacers fall to the Nuggets 86-71. That was your final. Jarris Walker, double-double, 13 and 11. No one shot the ball well. So, I mean, it is what it is yesterday. Tristan Newton did have 15, 8 and 5 for Johnny Furphy. As a team, the Pacers shot just 25% from 3. Let's get you some sound from last night in Vegas. Jarris Walker after the game on how he's improved in the Summer League.
I feel like hard play and intensity. I feel like just starting off with those two things and then just kind of let the game come to me, not trying to force the issue, not just come out here pulling, taking shots just because I can, but just trying to play the game the right way and just try to win as many games as possible.
All right, so there's Jarris Walker after the game. Gennaro Pargo, his head coach, on the improvement of Walker over the final, last couple weeks or so.
Being able to transition from a post player or a wing player to playing the guard position, guarding and also offensively handling and pick and roll and making plays for teammates.
I'm interested, James. I don't know how much you followed our conversations of Jarris Walker. I'm interested them putting him more, they say there, a guard, to putting him more in a guard position. Is that something that carries over to the season? And I'm asking you, I know you're probably not going to know the answer, but I just wonder. I mean, that guy was drafted to be more of a 4, especially if you go small. And then early on, they were using him more as a 3. And we end Summer League with them ending him more as a 2. I mean, that is a little bit interesting, isn't it? I mean, you see in football, guys change positions a little, but not like this. I mean, it's a difference between playing the 4 and playing the 2 in any offense.
Absolutely. I think realistically he's probably a 3-4 in an NBA rotation. But that is sort of the gift and the curse with Jarris Walker. He has so much that he can do, but it's a matter of can you do it well enough that we can actually get you a clearly defined role, because being able to do a little bit of everything but not well is not really a good thing. Now, I do think he's shown some improvement throughout Summer League. Obviously did not shoot it well yesterday as you advertised and as we can see.
Did.
I mean, 4 for 15 from the field is pretty rough. But I think that just having him get out there and get some minutes overall is good, because that's what Pacers fans were clamoring for last year. Is we just want to see him. And you are seeing him. You're seeing the strengths, the weaknesses, all of those things. But obviously, I think he has to take another step forward to seriously be considered for this rotation.
I would agree.
For a team that just made it to the conference finals.
Yeah, no, I would totally agree. One more game, Saturday, 5 o'clock against Cleveland. If you want to watch that one, NBA TV, I don't know if they've officially said, but the expectation, some of these guys, Johnny Furphy, I would imagine Jarris Walker, you probably won't see them. All right, second half of the Major League Baseball season kicking off tonight. Reds open in Washington. That one at 6:45. Mark, you ready? You got a little day NBA baseball today. No nap for Mark Dykton.
Yeah,
Cubs
sure.
and Diamondbacks at 2:20. You ready for that?
Sure.
You
why
ready
not?
for Cubs and Diamondbacks at 2:20? Cardinals, Braves at 7:20. Indianapolis Indians, they open a 3-game set in Omaha tonight at 8:05. IndyCar in Toronto, that one 1 o'clock on Sunday. So that'll be some good scenes there in Canada. One more swoosh here. Shane Lowry leading the Open Championship right now. Today he's 2 under through 10. So he shot a 66 yesterday. Shane Lowry 7 under. Daniel Brown 5 under. Alex Noren 3 under, along with Justin Thomas, a name we talked about yesterday. Justin Thomas tees off actually in about 20 minutes. So we'll find out. Now, as for Tiger Woods, Mark, I'm going to have to refresh like 3 times here. Tiger Woods is currently 11 over par. He was 8 over yesterday. He's 3 over through 9 already today. He's tied for 148th. There's only 7 golfers who are worse right now than Tiger Woods. So pretty brutal for Tiger Woods. As you know, I'm not the Colin Montgomery. My take on Tiger is this. I'm not saying retire, but I mean, doesn't Tiger have to look in the mirror and say, hey, I'm either going to kind of work my ass off to get back to where I can be respectable, or I'm going to be this. I mean, that's where he's at, right? I mean, he can keep playing in all these majors, but he's just going to be way over par. And he's not going to be a storyline, and it's going to be embarrassing. I mean, that's what it's going to be. It's embarrassing.
Yeah,
how bad he is.
With him, and it's all relative, right, how bad he is for Tiger because of the standard that he set. But at some point, we also have to look at Father Time and say, how much more can this guy really give to the game? And obviously considering the additional injuries, surgeries he's been throughout the years.
Well, I mean, it's not even that to me. It's can he play enough to where he can be respectable? You have to play to be better, right? I mean, you're not going to be able to not play golf and get better. And showing up for the majors, you're going to be way over par if you do that. And that's unfortunately what we've seen this season. All right, what did Peyton Manning say about C.J. Stroud? And there's a list out there of top 10 quarterbacks, James. I want your thoughts on it. Plus, what does Anthony Richardson need to do to sniff such lists this season? We'll dive into that. We got you to 10 o'clock. Appreciate you hanging out with us on this Friday. Wake up call, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan. I appreciate everyone hanging out with us. We got you until 10 o'clock here on the Wake Up Call. Again, for all the people that were out there, all the sponsors and much more out there for our Back Nine golf outing yesterday. Fantastic stuff. Knocked down some Jack and Cokes. Franciscan Health was out there, and everyone did a great job. So it was a lot of fun hanging out with a lot of listeners and everything else, and cannot wait to see how that event can grow over the next couple of years. James Boyd hanging in for KB today. Two things for you fellas, okay? Two quick things. I'm getting a lot of email notifications yesterday and today. You may say, well, Andy, why are you getting all these email notifications? I'll tell you. What happened? And I'm interested if James followed this at all. I don't know. You're a single guy living the life, okay? What was Tuesday and Wednesday of this week? Do you have any idea? What happened on the internet on Tuesday and Wednesday? I'm sure all married men know exactly where I'm going with this one.
Yeah, I probably have no idea. I was visiting my family and living the life.
Well, here you go. It was Amazon Prime Days. Do you even know that?
You know what? My mom
deals?
mentioned this. My sister
sure
mentioned
she
it.
did. Yeah, see?
But yeah, I don't have Amazon Prime.
Amazon Prime.
I don't have it. I mean, I'm thankful for my mom. That's the only subscription that I use that is hers. Everyone else is on my back.
You share that password. Okay.
There we go. But no, in all seriousness, I'm on a tangent here.
Okay, go ahead.
Every single subscription service is usually me, and there have my password. So I have the Netflixes, I have the HBOs,
the Apple TVs,
all of that is me. So it's like,
man,
you can
come on, family.
You can one off for me. So
yeah,
I appreciate
that's fine.
that.
Well, you need Amazon to watch Thursday Night Football.
Exactly.
You know?
So mama coming through, but no, I have not used Amazon Prime. Part of me is like, how can you order so much stuff to justify the monthly payment? But I kid you not, when I was home visiting my mom, my sister, my dad just complained every day because there was a package showing up for my sister or my mom every day.
So we ordered. So some stuff is not a deal. Some stuff I feel like it's marked up, and then they take, we're gonna jack the price up $20, and then take, and then take 18% off, and we're gonna trick you. But there have been, I will say this. So we have a 10-month-old right now.
Oh, well,
and
yeah.
so when you hit 1 year old, and Mark, you can attest to this, you got to get a different car seat. Or right around what you got the hundreds of dollars on the last car seat, James. It only works for a few months, brother.
I didn't even know this.
Yeah. Then you got to buy another one, and you got to either buy like a 3-in-1 that can last you all the way to the kids like damn near 100 pounds, or you got to get one for another year and a half, and then go get another one at some point. So we
I feel like we have 12 car seats in my garage or at my parents' house.
Well,
I'm not kidding.
So I was going to ask you this. You're not supposed to resell them, right? Am I wrong with that?
Oh, I don't know.
I mean, there's
no
all
idea.
sorts of rules.
I mean, you go to garage
seats.
sales, that's one of the hot items.
I was going to say, like, that does sound like a practical thing. You don't recycle the chair, but it's probably,
there's all sorts of rules on everything. You know how it
expires, or they updated something.
They do. They supposedly do expire.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah,
See, this is all like the best birth control in the world, because this is.
I didn't know
sounds
that. I didn't know that either.
Insanely expensive.
So we did that, but I'm telling you, yesterday and today, it's like everything is shipping separately. So I have 30 emails on your order went through, and then 30 emails on shipping, and then 30 emails on everything else. So
you can sell a car seat, you just can't sell one that has been recalled at any point.
Okay, or obviously they can track
or
supposedly,
or if it's been in a vehicle,
or
accident.
if it's been in an accident. Yeah, obviously you can't do that. Only a sick,
well,
twisted
I'm like,
person would do that.
Yeah,
but
okay.
but people are sick and twisted, so you know how it is. So I wanted to throw that out there. I'm sure every married man's like, wait a minute, we've had 13 boxes arrive in the last 12 hours.
Right, you out here
to
dry
the
snitching,
homestead.
Andy. You snitching on air, man. Now the wives have to have all these answers, like what is going on, and actually, I will take that back. It's probably some men out there too ordering some stuff and the wives kind of wondering like, this package is coming. What is this, hubby?
That's me. Yeah, I'm being a blowhard about everything. It's probably me to be quite honest. Give me this if you don't mind, Mark. So Peyton Manning was on McAfee's show. I think this is yesterday. The great Peyton Manning was on with Pat McAfee on ESPN. And they were talking about, of course, the NFL, and we're here. The NFL is here. Teams are reporting to camp, the AFC South, and everything else. Here's what Manning had to say, and we'll get your reaction, James, and then we'll talk about as it pertains to Anthony Richardson, because, C.J. Stroud, I don't think anyone thought he was going to have the type of year that he had last year. Here's Manning talking about Stroud.
I think about my rookie year, Pat. I kind of say it's so hard as a rookie all these interceptions. C.J. Stroud says it's not that hard. He went out and dominated as a rookie. So I think you're right. I think that division kind of goes through Houston, and obviously, D'Amico, look, they have a target on their backs, right? Everybody knows who they are. They're not sneaking up on anybody, but they're going to answer that challenge. But it's a great division. But, I'm a big fan of Stroud. I got to know him. I coached him at the Pro Bowl this year, Pat. Humble guy, hard worker, super talented, just nice to, my son, nice to all the fans there. I didn't get to know him. He didn't come to our football camp, Pat. He had a team commitment that he honored, and I kind of felt bad. He kind of got criticized for not coming to the camp. NFL people kind of said, hey, you were supposed to go, you didn't go, and I kind of missed that. I probably could have come out and clarified that, hey, he never committed to come. It was all good. So I actually apologized to him recently about kind of the criticism he had to face from NFL teams in his combine interviews. That was ridiculous, but big fan of him. So, yeah, look, I'm all on the Colts bandwagon, but we got to do something about these other teams in the AFC South.
I found that to be interesting. Now, to just throw another thing on top of it, so ESPN's Jeremy Fowler over the last couple weeks has done this series.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, where he's, I guess, had up to 80 scouts and general managers and, pro personnel people and coaches, assistant coaches, coordinators, and everything else. And, they've submitted their ballots for the top quarterbacks. He's done linebackers and offensive linemen and wide receivers. And we've talked a little bit about that on the show. The reason I bring it up is C.J. Stroud was number 7 on that list, and obviously last year coming in as a rookie. I'll just quickly read who's ahead of him. It's the who's who. I mean, I don't need to tell you. You probably know the list. Mahomes, Burrow, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson at 4, Matthew Stafford at 5. I think sometimes we forget Matthew Stafford's pretty damn good.
Yeah, he's great.
He made some big-time plays when he was in Lucas Oil last year. He was injured, too, in that game. Justin Herbert, who hasn't won a damn thing, but everyone loves him. And then C.J. Stroud comes in at number 7, and Jeremy Fowler says that 90% of the ballots that he was on, 90% of the ballots, and even some of them had C.J. Stroud as a top 3 quarterback in the NFL. Now, I am not ready to do that, but I think it's interesting that the reason I bring it up is, we want to see Anthony Richardson on these lists.
Absolutely.
And it makes me wonder, and this is not a prediction, but it's something that I think could happen, and it's what I want to see happen. It's why I think this season is so much about Anthony Richardson. The way they're talking about C.J. Stroud, he went out and had to prove it on the field. I would love, and if you're a Colts fan, I think, besides if you make the playoffs and make a run, besides, let's move the team stuff aside, because that's what ultimately matters. You hope as the season goes, and then after the season into even next year, okay, even into the 25-26 season, you want your quarterback, James, to be talked about like C.J. Stroud. And they're different players. Obviously Anthony Richardson is going to have way more yards on the ground and rushing touchdowns, you hope, and everything else. But, I'm hoping we sit here kind of on the eve weekend of training camp next year, and we're having a conversation about Anthony Richardson being on some of these lists as a top quarterback in this league. And I think that's what's at stake. What do you make of the C.J. Stroud and the Texans' love, and what do you make of Anthony Richardson?
Starting with C.J. Stroud, I'm not surprised. Obviously, he had a tremendous rookie season. It was going to be historic until he missed a couple of games due to the concussion, but he was special, and
he still had 4,200 yards passing, which is unbelievable. Think if he plays those other couple games.
Yeah, I didn't expect him to obviously have the success that he had. And I saw actually watching ESPN the other day where they're debating, whether Caleb Williams can have a season like C.J. Stroud, and it's like probably not. C.J. Stroud had a really, really great rookie season that we really hadn't seen in the NFL in a little while. And I know they've had other rookies come in and light it up, but it's not something where you can bank on that being the norm going forward. So I would also throw out there, though, I'm sure last season heading into the 2023 campaign, Jalen Hurts is probably a top 10 quarterback after the Super Bowl
run. It's a great point.
And then he's fallen out of the top 10. So you do want to see the sustained excellence of a C.J. Stroud if you want to keep him on that top 10 list, and top 7 is where he is right now. And then for Anthony, I think this is the year to kind of prove it. And it's kind of a catch-22 because he hasn't played a lot.
Well, I was going to say, is that fair? Because last year was going to be the grow-up year.
But check me out, though.
And they just can't do the grow-up year this year. James, they can't.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm like, it's almost like you have to produce now, because I look at this offseason, and I've written about it multiple times. They did not make a huge headlining move. In theory, their biggest offseason addition was a healthy Anthony Richardson.
Right.
They said, hey, if we bring back mainly the same team, now they obviously drafted Leatu Latu and A.D. Mitchell, and those guys are expected to be impact players from day one. But outside of those two, your team looks pretty much the same. So they're saying, all things the same, our quarterback will be our difference maker. And for it to really be felt, you have to play like a top 10 guy, in my opinion.
Well, not only the quarterback, and this is, I mean, listen, Colts fans know this. It's the fact that none of these guys ever played together. I mean, you never got Anthony Richardson and Pittman and Jonathan Taylor all on the field.
2 snaps with JT and AR last year.
It's ridiculous, all at the same time. So, it's unfortunate. You know, Anthony Richardson, because he missed last year, he is now having to grow up much quicker. he's having to grow faster than we saw. By the way, guys, honorable mentions on that list: Brock Purdy, your boy Jordan Love, Mark, who I know you love, Jalen Hurts, Tua on that list, Trevor Lawrence. I did love the Jags said, hey, we have some new jerseys we're going to wear this year. Have you guys seen this? And they're the exact same jerseys. Yeah. It's basically the Mark Brunell. Just the emblem on the shoulder's different. It's the exact same jersey.
I thought a little more gold in there, yellow in there a little bit. And they're going to wear them, I believe, against the Colts. So that's
week
something.
5.
Oh, is it? Of course they are.
So maybe the Colts get to spoil their little rollout.
It's one of those ones like the Lions did a couple years ago where they just added white around their logo.
Right.
And look at the new helmets. And it's like you have to squint and I guess that is different kind of.
I guess that is a little bit different. Yeah. It's not like the summer nights that the Colts do where it's like, okay, that's a totally different jersey. I know the Giants have an ugly one. The Steelers, the Packers have all had ugly ones anyway. So figured I'd bring that up. It's all about Anthony Richardson. All right, let's take a break. On the other side, we had a conversation for about 20 minutes yesterday with the Hall of Famer Bob Costas. If you missed any of that, we're going to replay that conversation. We had such great feedback yesterday. So our conversation with Bob Costas, Olympic memories, we'll talk about it next here on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, hour number 2. Reminder, coming up in an hour, Doug Boles going to join us. Brickyard weekend. We'll talk with him. You'll hear from Bob Costas, our conversation here in just a second. James Boyd from The Athletic hanging in for KB today. We were talking before we came back there. Might as well mention Shams reporting as of 4 minutes ago, James, that Kevin Durant will be practicing today with Team USA. You know, he's had the injuries. He's been out. You know, they sent your boy Kawhi Leonard home, and it's like, hey, is KD going to play? Not that he really needs all this ramp-up time, but they do have 2 more. Good God, it's a lot of exhibitions. They do have 2 more exhibitions. I forget. It's Germany and somebody else.
South Sudan.
Is that what it is?
Yep.
Yeah. I should know that because Wenyen Gabriel, I covered him at Kentucky. I believe he's on that team. So, and he was an all right player. So that'd be interesting. So they have 2 more games. The thought is he's going to play. Kevin Durant, I would imagine, in a couple of those games. And then, you know, we noticed, Mark, I don't know if you noticed, but James had a little bit of zest in his voice this morning. He goes, I don't like Derek White taking Tyrese Halliburton's minutes.
I agree.
I heard you say that.
I mean, I look at it like this. Derek White's a fine player. He's actually a really good player. I mean, he just got a $125 million extension with the Boston Celtics, who are my pick to run it back and probably win it again next year because they're so young and they're developed and all those things. But all of that considered, I do think that it was frustrating to watch the scrimmage the other day, and it's like, where's Tyrese? And he's in there at the end with Nigel Hayes from Wisconsin and a few others, and I'm like, my boy Tyrese out here getting garbage time minutes. I get it. It's like the best team in the world.
Yeah, but still, he didn't get those second quarter minutes like he used to.
Exactly, but in all seriousness, I do think that Tyrese offers them some oomph and some juice to that second unit. And him and Anthony Edwards, they seem to thrive together, so I get it. Steve Kerr's experimenting with what he has. You do have to evaluate what you have before you go into, the full stages where the games actually count. But all of that considered, I would not like to see Derek White playing over Tyrese Halliburton because Tyrese Halliburton is a better player.
You just want to see him. Yeah, Halliburton played like 14 minutes. I do get into Team USA. I don't always drape myself in the flag, but I do get into Team USA. I still think Halliburton's going to have his time. I still think, maybe not this Olympics. I think there are other Olympics where he'll have more minutes. I mean, you would imagine Steph Curry, this is probably the swan song for him, LeBron, KD, and a number of other guys. So, yeah, I'm all into it, but he did have the minutes with Langston Galloway and Nigel Hayes.
Also, in all seriousness, though,
forgot all those guys.
That has to be one of the coolest experiences for like Nigel Hayes. Seriously, you get to tell your family or your kids or your grandkids one day, hey, I was on the same team with LeBron, Steph, and I get it. It's just for the showcase. They won't be over with them officially in Paris business. But that is a very cool and arbitrary, fun fact that you might see on Jeopardy one day or something.
They played 3 minutes at the end of the game. No, they did. I actually would have been fine as well, James, I would have been fine with Cooper Flagg being added to the team if they didn't want to add Derek White. And I'm not kidding. He's a kid going to Duke. I mean, I'm sure you followed him a little bit.
Yeah.
He looks like he might just be a straight-up beast.
Yeah, we're going to see some nasty tanking from teams to try to get that player.
People, get ready, Indiana and Purdue fans.
Exactly.
You think ESPN has shown you a lot of Duke in the past? Wait until this season.
Yeah, this dude's going to be big time.
They're going to treat Duke like they did the Zion year.
So here's what I'm going to ask, though. If you get garbage time minutes in a Team USA scrimmage or something like that, and you're Nigel Hayes, you're whoever, are you running offense or are you just shooting the ball?
Oh, I get the ball. I'm shooting the ball.
That's what I'm saying. I might
try to lob it to LeBron once. Otherwise, I'm getting the ball and putting the ball
That's
up.
what I'm saying. I'm like, I gotta get a bucket. I want to get in the box score officially to say I was there. I came. I saw. I conquered.
Yeah, I got to get a rebound. I got to get a foul.
Get something.
Got to get an assist. I got to do something. So, good stuff there. All right. So yesterday we had about a 22-minute conversation, James, with Bob Costas. KB and I did, and there's some things that we just think resonate so much that just a different audience in the 8 o'clock hour than the 9:05 segment. So we wanted to have people hear that again. Again, we talk Olympic memories, a little Caitlin Clark and the Fever at the end. But Bob Costas is absolutely one of the best. He's a Hall of Famer. And our conversation started with Kevin asking, hey, where do the Olympics rank on your great resume, all the things that you've worked on in your career? And here's how that Bob Costas conversation started.
Well, it had to rank very high, and it's kind of an amusing fact, but it is a fact, that there are people who are not sports fans who watch the Olympics every couple of years. Used to be every 4 years. Both the winter and summer were in the same period, but now it's every 2 years, and that's pretty much all the sports they watch. And you'd be surprised how many times over the years I've heard people say, "What do you do when you're not doing the Olympics?" And I'm thinking this is very odd. I don't know, the Super Bowl, the NBA Finals, the World Series, but there are people who only watch the Olympics, and of course there are people who are fans of all sports that are not necessarily track and field fans or wouldn't watch swimming in a non-Olympic setting, but they're all in on it during the Olympics. And the way it's presented, first at ABC and more recently at NBC, is kind of as a 2 to 3 week long miniseries with all the drama and the plots and subplots that attend to that. It's a different kind of assignment. It's different from anything else in sports, but it definitely is something that rivets the nation for that period of time. And whoever is front and center on it, as long as you do a reasonably decent job, gets some of the benefit of being close to something that Americans care about to that extent.
Bob Costas with us here on The Fan. Bob, appreciate you joining us. I'm being a broadcasting nerd myself, I always think when I'm watching something like the Olympics, not just you guys, you anchoring the coverage and everything else, usually a huge time difference, but all the announcers and new announcers and sports and producers and everything else. How much, can you tell our audience, how much work goes into you guys pulling off the Olympics and doing such a great job that you did for many years?
Well, I did a dozen of them between 1988 and 2016. Rio was my last one, and about 5 years prior to that, I told NBC, I'll do a few more, but 2016 is going to be the end. And they were very wise, by the way, to hire Mike Tirico and have me pass the baton to him because he's so capable in a variety of areas, hosting and play-by-play. So I'm sure everybody approaches it differently. One of the things I learned, though, after doing one or two, was that no one can know everything about the Olympics. At a Summer Olympics, for example, there's more than 200 nations now, more than 10,000 competitors. You're wasting your time memorizing every pole vaulter from Peru or cross-country skier from Finland. As the main host or the prime time host of the Olympics, your job is to really be a good generalist, to know as much as you can about the history of the Olympics and about the circumstances of the host city and the host nation, and to familiarize yourself with the 8 or 10 sports that are likely to get a lot of attention during prime time and the 24 or so athletes expected to be at the center of that coverage. But at the same time, you have to be nimble enough to take a briefing because inevitably some things you didn't really expect will happen. The research departments are so good, and now they're enhanced by the advanced technology, and they can access information so quickly, and they have that database on every sport and every competitor. And so what you need to do in some situations is to be able to take a briefing quickly and turn that into some sort of intelligible narrative if something unexpected happens. The preparation actually spreads out over years. If you're talking about the producers who travel the world to put together some of the features on the athletes, and the researchers who compile all this voluminous material on the various competitions and the competitors. It was different during the last couple of Olympics because COVID hamstrung everybody, and they couldn't go to far-flung places to do that kind of background production. You could do the research, but you couldn't do the production. So the last couple of Olympics were presented in atypical fashion. NBC did the best they could under adverse circumstances. This Paris Olympics, starting soon, is a chance for the Olympics themselves and for NBC as the American carrier of the Olympics to get the groove back. Paris is a potentially kind of uplifting and fascinating setting. While COVID is not over, it's certainly not the overriding consideration it once was. There'll be fans in the stands. You'll see competitors interacting with family and friends. There'll be a raucous atmosphere and a lot of atmospherics, given the history of France and the surrounding areas. And then after that, they go to Italy for the next Winter Games, and then to Los Angeles in 2028 for the next Summer Games. So if the Olympics doesn't bounce back in a big way now, and we know that the broadcasting landscape has changed so much, and it affects almost every sport except for the NFL, it seems, and maybe college football. So we'll see how far back the Olympics can rise from where they were over the last half decade or so, but I'm optimistic that it will be a big bounce in the right direction.
That voice needs no introduction. He's the one and only Bob Costas. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors hotline. Bob, you didn't really, I guess, touch on it a little bit there, but you weren't afraid to hit on a variety of topics as the nightly host, country-related, athlete-related, whether it be on the track, off the field, whatever. And I'm curious, did the IOC ever reach out to you directly or to, the TV companies that you were broadcasting for in expressing a displeasure at all? And how did you kind of go about that over the years?
Not directly. I wouldn't be surprised if there wasn't some behind-the-scenes conversation, just as I wouldn't be surprised if there was some not traceable behind-the-scenes conversation between the NFL and NBC when I hit on topics that might have made them uncomfortable, most especially CTE and its undeniable connection to football. And in the case of the Olympics, I want to make this clear. Sometimes people will take something out of context, especially now with the Internet, where something that is 1% of what you said or did can be made to represent the majority of what you said or did. I tried to do this judiciously. The vast majority of my coverage centered on the athletes, the competition, the drama, the sports history, the background in that respect. But there are always elephants in the room, one of which is the IOC's undeniable affinity for authoritarian regimes. Twice to Beijing, 2008 and 2022, an Olympics in Vladimir Putin's Russia in 2014. Those questions have to be asked. I don't know why the IOC was so reluctant to recognize the Munich tragedy of 1972 when the survivors of those killed in that terrorist attack had pleaded with them for some sort of official recognition. I don't think that you should take up an hour of prime time talking about it, but I wanted to talk about it for 2 minutes to at least acknowledge it. There was some pushback on that, but I managed to get some of that in there. And whenever I interviewed the heads of the IOC, I treated that as if they were on Meet the Press or Face the Nation. I just asked them what I thought were the pertinent questions because I thought that was part, not the entirety or even most of it, but it should be part of what the primetime host's duties are. The duties of the Olympic host are different than those who so capably call track and field or swimming or beach volleyball. They do their jobs very well. But the primetime host job entails a variety of things, one of which, in proportion and judiciously, is a journalistic approach.
Bob, favorite Olympic moment for you as host, favorite Olympic city that you went to?
The Olympic moment is easy. There were so many great ones, but the one that is at the top of the list for me is Muhammad Ali lighting the torch, actually the cauldron. He was the last torch bearer and lighted the cauldron at the opening ceremony in Atlanta in 1996. And I apologize to those who may have heard me tell this story before, but since you asked, no one knew, virtually no one knew it was going to be Muhammad Ali. Usually, we are told, whoever I was hosting the opening ceremony with, sometimes it was Katie Couric, Dick Enberg, Matt Lauer. Usually we were told who the final torchbearers would be. In fact, who each of the torchbearers were, at least as they entered the stadium in the final stages, so that we could think about it and have a note on each of them. And in this case, Dick Ebersol, who ran NBC Sports and Olympics, told me and Dick Enberg, you'll recognize him or her immediately, but I want your reaction to be as spontaneous as those in the stadium and those watching on television. And I began running the possibilities through my head. We're in Atlanta. Hank Aaron, well, he had no Olympic connection, and baseball is not primarily an Olympic sport. Evander Holyfield was the heavyweight champion of the world. Maybe, maybe not. And I briefly thought of Muhammad Ali, but then I dismissed the thought because I didn't think he was physically capable. And they rehearsed it, as I later found out, one time at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Maybe a dozen people knew about it. And during the rehearsal, and I didn't know this until Janet Evans, the second to last Olympic torchbearer on that opening ceremony, great American Olympic swimmer. Janet Evans told me this just a year or two ago. During the rehearsal, Muhammad dropped the torch because even then, 20 years before his death, he was trembling from the effects of his Parkinson's syndrome. And they were very much on edge as to how this would be pulled off. But they'd kept it a secret, and he literally stepped out of the shadows and into the spotlight, and there stood Muhammad Ali. And you hear a lot of sounds in a stadium or arena at a sports event, but seldom is one of those sounds a collective gasp. But you could hear it, and there were a couple of seconds of stunned silence before that gave way to sustained, thunderous applause. And here stood this man, once the most beautiful and talkative of athletes, entertaining, nimble, in an entirely different condition. And obviously he was a vain person, entertainingly so. I'm too pretty to be a boxer, et cetera, et cetera. He was willing to present himself to the world in that altered and diminished state. There was a kind of nobility in that. It was uplifting and poignant at the same time. And that, I think, is the one event or moment that stands out for me the most.
Bob Costas with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Bob, I know you had talked about Ali. I think you had even been, if I'm not mistaken, you had spoken when they opened the Ali Center there in Louisville. I actually moved to Indianapolis from Louisville. What kind of relationship did you have or memories of Ali?
Well, I came to know him well after his boxing career, and I'm not going to exaggerate the extent of that relationship. I took my children to visit him at his home on the Michigan-Indiana border around, 2002, somewhere in there. And at that point, he was certainly aware of everything going on, but he didn't talk very much, and his voice was reduced to a whisper. But he had always had a certain presence to him and a certain warmth to him. I knew his wife, Lonnie, pretty well. He told the people at NBC after that opening ceremony in 1996, he said he felt as if he was born again.
Wow.
It was a moment of reconciliation, I guess. He had been admired and adored by millions upon millions of people, not just in America but worldwide. But he was also a polarizing figure. There were people who resented him because of his refusal to accept induction into the Army or for other political stances. But I think in the end, his humanity and basic kindness and generosity of spirit won the vast majority of people over. And that Olympic moment kind of exemplified that. It was all that writ large. So he said he felt like he was born again. And the great producers at NBC quickly put together a piece. They had like 2 weeks to do it. They put together a piece about his life, culminating in that moment, called Twice Born. And we played it on the last weekend of the 96 Olympics. And throughout those Olympics, Muhammad made appearances at various events. And even the greatest of athletes, you think in 96 that's the second dream team. The true dream team is Barcelona in 92. But there were still many all-time great future Hall of Fame NBA players on the American team. And every one of them, when Muhammad Ali, moving very slowly, kind of shuffling, not able to be the Ali of the past, when he came into the basketball arena, all the players gathered around him like little kids gathering around, Babe Ruth or Michael Jordan. It was just amazing the effect he had on everyone.
The one and only Bob Costas. He's with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline, sharing some awesome memories on this Thursday morning. Bob and I contacted you to join us. I mentioned, obviously, a lot of Olympic talk, but I did want to ask you about Bob Knight, and obviously his name in this state needs zero introduction. I was struck by your relationship with Bob over the years, and I was hoping you could share a little bit more on how you viewed your relationship with certainly one of the more polarizing figures, I would say in sports, but certainly in our state.
Yeah, I think people ought to recognize that people are complex. People carry within them a variety of strengths and sometimes weaknesses. It's just that in Bob's case, they were just so much more stark. I had this conversation with him both publicly and privately. It was a shame that some of his excesses undermined, for much of the public, his very real virtues. He was a guy who never cheated in recruiting, who demanded that his kids go to class. There was a gruff integrity about him, and there was also, although he didn't try to make a big public issue of it, tremendous kindness and generosity of spirit. The Landon Turner thing is just one example of that. The player paralyzed in a car accident, terrific Indiana player, and Bob Knight contacts Red Auerbach and asks him to draft Turner in some late round of the draft. There were more rounds of the draft then than there are now. Bob Knight had many, many virtues. There was much to admire and respect about him, and he could often be very humorous and very good company. He was a very smart man, not just basketball smart. He was observant and had a keen intelligence, but he was also capable of anger and of not holding himself in check as you would wish he would. And one of the questions I put to him in a couple of the interviews we did was, you want your team to play a disciplined style. Even if they win the game, if you see little things that are outside what you've taught and coached them, you get on them about that. How can you let yourself at times be so undisciplined? And I don't think he really had a satisfactory answer to that. But I guess what we come away from knowing Bob Knight with is sometimes you just can't explain the complexity of a given person. But on balance, did I very much like Bob Knight, and did I admire and respect him? Yes, I did.
The great Bob Costas with us here on this Thursday on the Fan. He joins us on the Payless Liquors hotline. Bob, you know, I don't know. I'm sure maybe you're not following the WNBA night in, night out, but here the craze of Caitlin Clark has taken over not only the league, and you saw the new TV deal that they agreed to yesterday. This freshman class in the league has changed the WNBA so much. What do you make of kind of the ascension and popularity of someone like Caitlin Clark?
Well, there are many factors involved as the WNBA's profile is raised and its popularity increases and its economic viability increases. But if you had to isolate one person in this moment, it's certainly Caitlin Clark. And I think she has handled herself, both at Iowa and in her rookie season in Indiana, she has handled herself in an exemplary fashion. She realizes that she is the subject both of adulation but also resentment. And she shows an uncommon maturity and self-control in not lashing out at that, in not being defensive, in not responding to every unfair comment or insult. I think that people are going to have to recognize, both fellow players, if they don't already, and the press and fans, that she's an individual, but she's an exceptional individual. No matter what people try to place upon her, either in admiration or in resentment, she is an individual named Caitlin Clark. She plays a very exciting brand of ball. You know, there's obviously a racial element here. People are going to be perhaps feel a greater affinity for her because of her race, and maybe some may feel a resentment because modern basketball is, generally speaking, dominated by black players. But did that make Larry Bird? You know, some dope said Larry Bird, you know, was overrated because he's white. Really? Ask the black players who played with and against him. The same thing with Caitlin Clark. The same thing with Luka Doncic or Nikola Jokic. Their excellence should not diminish anyone else. In fact, if you look at it in a reasonable way, what Caitlin Clark did both with women's college basketball and now in the WNBA, sure, the spotlight's on her, but some of that lands on everybody else. So that high tide raises all boats. There's also an element here, and Nick Wright made this point on some television show, which I thought was a very good one. Let's say some band that has its core fans, and they show up at small venues, 1,500 at a time. And all of a sudden, that band has a number one hit, and they become a national craze. And now they're playing bigger arenas to sell out crowds. That core group may feel some resentment. Hey, who are these newbies? They don't know anything about this. We've been here from the start. We have a granular appreciation of this. I think there's some of that in the WNBA, but it's so short-sighted. You know, I get it. If you were among the 3,000 people who were season ticket holders and now there's 18,000 in the building, maybe you think that these new fans are interlopers and you've been there from the start and you're the real core fans. Okay, fine. But don't cut off your nose to spite your face. You're complaining
Right.
on the one hand, we're not getting all the credit. Well, now whatever this phenomenon entails, and Caitlin Clark is a huge part of it, isn't this bringing all the attention to you? Do you think Angel Reese would be as well known, even if she's chosen sometimes to play the villain's role, that she'd be as well known and she'd have as many fans if she wasn't, in a certain sense, a counterpoint to Caitlin Clark? Calm down, everybody.
Bob Costas with us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Bob, we can't thank you enough for your time. I do want to end with one more, if you don't mind. When we mentioned that we were having you on, several people reached out, and ironically enough, yesterday would have been the 91st birthday for Slick Leonard. And when they mentioned that you were coming on, your history in the ABA certainly speaks for itself. And I was hoping for our audience, and Slick is obviously beloved here, if you could maybe share a story or two that you had, if you do have any of your interactions with Slick Leonard.
You know, I was aware of Slick, obviously. I came into the ABA the last 2 years of the league's existence, 74 and 75. I guess 74-75 season, 75-76 season, with the Spirits of St. Louis. And we, our paths crossed, but I did not know Bob all that well, but I was aware of his accomplishments. His team won 3 of the 9 ABA championships. It included some of the greatest players in the league's history, Roger Brown and Mel Daniels, Freddie Lewis, Bob Nedelicki, and others. And his standing around Indiana, I mean, you could feel it. Anytime you went to a Pacer game, as you guys know, for a very long period of time, he was part of the radio broadcast team. So he was a definite presence, and from what I'm told, but never personally experienced, quite a character.
All right, there's our conversation with Bob Costas yesterday. Just fantastic. We were joking around at the back nine yesterday with some listeners. You feel like you could ask Bob Costas a question, James, and James Boyd in for KB today on just about anything, and he'll give you a good 4 or 5 minute answer. I mean, don't you? We did everything in that interview. Ali, Slick Leonard, Caitlin Clark in the Fever, and then obviously the decades that he was part of the Olympic coverage.
I mean, he is a legend, and you look at the stuff that he's been able to be around, the athletes, the legends, the icons, and to me, that's a life well lived. It's like, man, you've had a chance to be in the same room with people who have
With
literally
everybody.
changed the world
Right.
or changed how we view sports, at least. And so that is something I would hope to, strive to do at least a little bit of throughout my career.
Dude, he's 72 years old.
Does not look like it at all to me.
Not at
Seriously.
all. He doesn't sound like it. He doesn't look like it. He doesn't sound like it. And so great stuff. Again, if you miss any part of that, you checked in halfway through, you didn't hear it yesterday or even today, 1075thefan.com. Check out the podcast center. All right, so all morning we've been giving you these updates. I'll give you another one. So there's a big IT outage in the area. Not even in the area. What is it, Mark? It's going all the way, did you say, to Australia?
Australia.
Oh, my God. So
all the way down
under.
So right now, I believe air travel has mostly been grounded in the United States. God bless you if you're traveling today. Delta, United, and American have all grounded while they tried to figure it out. Something with Microsoft. It's a good day to be an Apple shareholder. The Mac. I mean, good
Got
God.
Andy twisting the knife
Well,
here.
I mean, you got banks that are being affected. I know credit card companies. I know in the area, I think Speedway gas stations in Indianapolis. I've seen a lot of stuff on Twitter that a lot of their stuff isn't working. So, Mark, when I saw that this morning, I did think about texting Mark and go, "Hey, are we gonna have any issues this morning?"
Well, apparently we're off air at like 2 a.m, and people are like, "How'd that happen?" I'm like, "Well, there's a massive outage worldwide." I'm guessing that had
Who
something
had to
to do
fix
with
that?
it. I have no idea.
Which poor man or woman around here had to fix that at 2 a.m. if we
No
went off
idea.
the air. So great stuff, Bob Costas. Again, you miss any of that, 1075 The thefan.com. All right, let's get into it. A morning check down here on this Friday.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. Season tickets are on sale now. Order by August 1st for your shot at the best seats in Hinkle Fieldhouse. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
Yeah, speaking of, even though it's technically not Butler, Hinkle Fieldhouse coming up this weekend. You follow the TBT at all, James?
I do. I'm a basketball junkie.
So you'll be invested in the TBT.
Absolutely.
I mean, locally, there's games at Freedom Hall. There's games at Hinkle Fieldhouse. There's games in Lexington at Rupp Arena. Those are some pretty good places to play basketball.
Don't be surprised you see me at Hinkle just because I've been to women's games there. Never been to any other games there, but I like to set up, like the setting of it.
Yeah.
And I also like to see, at least throughout the TBT tournament, what player I might have forgotten about at whatever college. And it's like, yeah, they're still playing. Still got some game.
We had Shelby Mack on yesterday.
Oh, he was a baller.
And he fits that mold.
Ooh,
and
yeah.
I had forgotten, we had Mack on yesterday. I forgot that he they had the two runs there at Butler. He actually skipped his senior season.
Yeah, no,
and so
he was a good player.
Yesterday, he was on with us. He's like, yeah, it's nice to be back. I never had a senior day in Hinkle Fieldhouse. So those tickets on sale. All right, let's dive into it. Pacers Summer League. They now fall, they did last night to the Nuggets, 86-71. I know the win-loss record doesn't matter too much. 1-3 now in the Summer League. One more game to play for the Pacers. That'll be Saturday, 5 o'clock against Cleveland. Now, this was a disastrous game shooting the basketball. Just 25% from three were the Pacers last night. Jarris Walker, 13 and 11. Tristan Noon had 15 in the loss. Let's go to Jarris Walker quickly. What did he need to work on? They put him at guard. Here's Walker post-game.
Noticing where I'm at on the floor and then slowing down the game, knowing who's on the court with me, their tendencies, and just trying to help my teammates as much as possible when I'm out there.
Yeah, I found it interesting. You draft him almost as a 4. You try to play him as a 4 and then a 3 and then more of a 2 over Summer League. So Summer League kind of wrapping up. Johnny Furphy, 8 points, 5 rebounds in loss. Again, one more game coming up Saturday against Cleveland. Major League Baseball kicking off the second half of their season. Reds open in Washington, 6:45 tonight. Cubbies got a day game. There you go, Mark. Go up to Chicago with the family. Cubs and Diamondbacks at 2:20. Cardinals on the road in Atlanta, that one at 7:20. Indianapolis Indians, they open a 3-game set in Omaha tonight at 8:05. IndyCar in Toronto, Sunday at 1 o'clock. I assume Jake's going to that. Is he got his passport ready?
I'm assuming.
Is he ready to go?
He's going to get the ketchup-flavored chips and everything he always brings back. And
what does he bring back from Toronto?
Ketchup-flavored potato chips.
Oh, okay.
And then he goes to, Roots, where he buys all his clothes. No, actually.
Are they good?
He's brought the ketchup chips back. They're actually pretty good.
You've been to Toronto?
I have been to Toronto.
I got a Toronto story. So Kentucky basketball, when I followed them, they played up there a couple years ago. And, kind of like, remember Purdue played up there because Zach Edey's from Toronto. So Kentucky played up there in a preseason type, thing that they do. And they had they left all of their Nikes in the bus. And the bus got robbed. And so they literally went along the street there, and there were some homeless people that were wearing the size. These are huge dudes, the size 15.
I don't know,
Nike.
Mark. This sounds like an inside job from Andy.
Yep.
I was not there.
He pulled off the ultimate prank.
I was not there.
He was the mastermind behind this.
I know the guy that had to try to find some of the shoes.
Oh man, that's tough.
Some of them were like they were either Kobe's or maybe. I forget the exact shoe, but there was a shoe that was getting ready to come out. Maybe Durant's,
wow.
and they weren't totally out yet. And so, there were some people that stole size 16 shoes
so no, when
of a mammoth basketball player in Toronto.
When I went to Toronto, everything I brought with me came back with me.
It's a nice city. It's a nice city.
Oh, I enjoyed it. I went to the
like
CN Tower. I believe it's the tallest building in the Western Hemisphere. Went all the way to the top and texted my family and told them I was on top of the world.
Now, quickly, the Open Championship's ongoing. We're not even going to talk about Tiger Woods because Bowen's not here today. Shane Lowry was 7 under. He's now back to 5 under. So Shane Lowry is still the leader. He's tied with a guy named Daniel Brown. I have no idea who the hell that is. They're tied at 5 under. Justin Thomas just teed off. He's 3 under. Billy Horschel at 2 under. Dean Burmeister at 2 under. So if you know those guys, congratulations. So we'll keep you updated on the Open Championship. A story, we're going to take a break. On the other end, James, I'm so interested in your thoughts on this, and I'm not even going to tell you what it is other than this tease, okay? There's a story, SEC Media Days were this week. I don't know if you've ever followed these sorts of things. Kirby Smart of Georgia said something that I find to be hilarious, awesome, and terrible, kind of all at the same time. And how's that for a tease? We'll tell you what that is on the other end. James Boyd in for KB. We're hanging out until 10 o'clock here on this Friday on The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I appreciate you hanging out with us on this Friday. Boy, I tell you what, with training camp, this is kind of the last Friday before I feel like I can say it's a football Friday. We'll get into training camp, and then, then the games will start, the preseason games, the joint scrimmage with Kyler Murray. I'm trying to think. Who's the head coach now? It's for Arizona.
It's
for the
Gannon.
Cardinals. Yeah, it's Gannon who was there with
Jonathan
Steichen.
Gannon.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that'll be a lot of fun. So James Boyd hanging out with us until 10 o'clock today in for KB today. I wanted to bring up this story just to get your organic reaction to this. So we didn't talk much about it here. The SEC Media Days were this week, and they're very self-important, where the SEC celebrates
It was
themselves.
all over my TV. I was like, dang, you cannot miss SEC Media Days.
Yeah, I mean, and next week, we'll probably do some stuff with it. The Big Ten Media Days are here, so you better know that. Your Illini will be blowing into town at some point. I think, if I'm not mistaken, Wednesday and Thursday, I think Signetti's the final day. I have it in my calendar, and then Walter's on Wednesday. I need to check that, but we'll some sound from that as Big Ten Media Days comes into Indianapolis. So usually the SEC Media Days, you'll have a coach or two that will say something, right, along the line. There'll be something that happens, and really, I didn't think that happened this time. I thought it was kind of a boring SEC Media Days, but the only thing I did find interesting was Kirby Smart, who's the head coach at Georgia. Now, I don't know, James, and help me here. I don't know how much you follow any of this, but Georgia football does have a problem. They have a problem with speeding.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen this.
Yeah, I've seen this.
So for years now, and they had the tragic death after they won the title of a player and a staffer and everything else. There are a couple stretches of roads where these guys in their cars, I mean, I sound like I'm 100 years old saying this.
No, seriously.
But the
It
kids
needs
are
to be
going,
said,
they're
though.
going way too fast.
Yeah.
And we're talking, they're going over 100 in like a 25.
Yeah.
They're going 120 in a 35. I mean, that's the kind of conversation that's out there. So that has been something that is kind of like hung over the program. Now you may say, Andy, we're in Indianapolis. Why the hell do I care about what's going on with Georgia football? I understand. But just for, if you give to an IU or a Purdue, or you're a fan of, I don't know, North Carolina, and you're in the area, and you give to the collectives. These collectives now can pay, and they do pay these college guys. I hate even calling them college guys because it's basically pro sports at this point. So the NIL collective there in Georgia, I believe it's called Classic City Collective, is one of the big collectives that raises a bunch of money, and a lot of these 4- and 5-star kids benefit from those funds with Georgia football. Kirby Smart told the 24/7 site there at Georgia, I think it's Dogs 247, that the collective, again, not the university, okay, not Kirby Smart and company, the collective has been fining players for off-the-field issues. There's James's face. If you saw it on the YouTube, because, I mean, this is the next round. You make money, okay. If you do wrong, Pat Beverly throws a ball at a woman's head in Cambridge, he got fined. If you're in the NFL and you hit Anthony Richardson in the head and you get a 15-yard penalty, you're going to be fined. If you're in Major League Baseball, just think of, you charge the mound, you get suspended, you're going to be fined. And this is the thin line that you're walking between collegiate sports and professional sports and the merging of the two. And so I found it interesting, Kirby Smart in Georgia have done precious little to guys that have been, for the guys that have been speeding and some other off-the-field issues. It's the great debate you saw with Mike Gundy a couple weeks ago. Guy gets a DUI. Well, I mean, what am I going to do? He's being paid a lot of money. I'm running a business. This is not college sports anymore. That's what Mike Gundy told you a couple weeks ago. I'm playing my guy because I'm in pro sports now, and that's how we're going to handle it. But I found it all sorts of interesting. You could even say perhaps a slippery slope, if you will, legally, that a collective, I guess you would be fining / withholding money from a student athlete who gets in trouble off the field. What do you make of that? What a story.
Yeah, I thought that was, not as you just told me this, that's an incredible nugget to reveal. But in all seriousness, I think that more has to be done with that program. And really just overall, I've seen, and maybe it's because I'm in sports and I follow this stuff, I actually helped out with my buddy Alec Lewis, who covers the Vikings for us for The Athletic. I helped him out with a story with Jordan Addison, who had a DUI or alleged DUI last week, a week after one of his teammates died because of an alleged drunk driver. And those are the things where I'm like, at some point, you have to be able to wrangle your players in. And I get it, like the collective might find them and the school might take some accountability, but you are the coach. You're the face of that program. You have won a lot, so can you win in that area too? I mean, I don't think it's hard to, get a hold on those things. And I get it; those guys have, access to cars and money and fame and all these things. But to see that, 4, 5, 6 players of yours have been arrested since you won a national championship a couple years ago, and it's all driving-related incidents, that is an issue, and that's something that is a scar on your university. So we'll see what happens, but I don't know if getting fined or getting and then how much do we know are they getting fined?
Yeah, I mean, is it
a little slap on the wrist?
Is it a few hundred? Is it a few thousand?
Yeah,
I mean, you would imagine, football has more guys than basketball. In basketball, you can pay. Look at Indiana. Indiana basketball, they have enough money. You can pay a couple guys if they're making $500,000, if they're making $1 million, if they're making more than $1 million. So you kind of know, if you fine a guy $5,000-$10,000. But football has so many moving parts, and you might have. You have 100 guys on a team, the NIL is spread out. It's very much different. What I found to be interesting is, if a collective could find somebody, Mackenzie Mbako got, in trouble a year ago at Indiana. If he's making $300,000, would it ever come out that a collective would fine him for anything off the court, like $10,000?
Yeah.
Like, just that conversation. Number one, that's not a conversation we've had on Sports Talk Radio. I'm not surprised that it would get to that point. And then the second thing, and this goes to a little bit of what you're talking about, it's a great way for Kirby Smart to pass the punishment off to somebody else.
I mean, you can, but I also
that's
think
what it sounds like to me.
Yeah, but what bothers me, and I'm not going to sit up here and act like sports is some moral place. It is very immoral if you think about, who we praise and why we praise them. But the fact of the matter is these guys get second and third and fourth opportunities because they're extremely talented at football. I mean, if these guys couldn't play, they'd be dismissed yesterday. And so when they get up there and they say, oh, we're trying to teach them character, we're trying to hold them accountable, we don't want to just throw them away. Yeah, that's because they can also run really fast and hit somebody really hard
right.
or, make somebody miss. And so I think all of those things are a factor that you have to consider. And I think that if you're really about your players, at some point you have to make an example out of these guys. Because, if you think about it, if you ever grew up loving sports and you got in trouble and your parents were like, you can't practice, or you can't go outside, you can't do this.
Right.
Now, you take that and you obviously elevated to being a college athlete. You can't play anymore at this university. That will get your attention a lot more than a fine, in my opinion. So I'm not saying these guys should be kicked off the team or whatever, but at some point,
I agree. But
a line has to be put.
I think, and we got to take a break. I think collectives being able to fine is the way they're going to go with punishment.
I can see it.
Because these coaches need to win games, and this is now, and they're going to hide behind what Gundy hid behind a couple weeks ago. Why would I, if a guy got a DUI, if a Colts player got a DUI on a Wednesday, he would play on Sunday.
Yeah.
He would play on Sunday. I don't want to put a player's name out there and say, well, they would get in trouble. Someone would hear that. That would be the wrong thing to say, but they would play on Sunday. They would. I feel like it would be, I feel like that is unanimous. I feel like it's 100%. And so I think there's a little bit of that here is now that we're business, you guys want to pay players. Coaches don't want to pay players. Okay. They don't. A lot of them, especially Mike Gundy.
Right.
He's saying, hey, you want to pay players? Great. I'm going to treat them like a business. In the NFL, he's going to play on Sunday. And the NBA, he's going to play on a Tuesday night after being in trouble. And I think there's a little bit of that going on here. On the other end, we'll take a break. I'm tired of something, and I'm wondering if I'm becoming an old man. James Boyd may disagree with me. I'll tell you what that is coming up next. Reminder, Doug Boles coming up at 9 o'clock.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, coming up in about 7 minutes, Doug Boles will join us, president over there at IMS. Going to be a full weekend. Brickyard 400 in town, the NASCAR boys in town. So if you can get on out there, tickets are very reasonable. And they had the tickets like $60, James, to James Boyd from The Athletic in for KB today, where you have like a whole section of like the grandstand you can kind of like move around. So you can get different views of the track. Obviously, not as many people there for the Brickyard as the Indianapolis 500. So we'll talk with Doug coming up here at the top of the hour. We have a couple minutes here. Can I be the old man? And this is strictly me. I want to be clear. This is strictly me on Twitter, making Twitter too much of my brain, okay? Is every media member, seemingly, and now I guess the game officially came out, last night into this morning, is the damn college football video game that is out, James.
Do you not like happiness?
And listen,
Andy?
I'm fine with gaming. I game a little bit myself. I told you guys this earlier. If I didn't have to wake up early in the morning, I would game a little bit later into the night than I do with some buddies. But when you got to get up and kind of be on at 7 a.m., that sort of thing, it's much more difficult to stay up and to be on no sleep.
I get it.
I'm an old man, at this point. But every media member, I started my dynasty with the Ohio Bobcats, and now I've won a Heisman, and I won. I even saw Zaire Franklin. You see Zaire? He's like, I restarted 5 times.
That's my guy.
He's playing as Syracuse and got his ass kicked, I guess, 5 times.
He's enjoying it, man. I feel like you can't be mad at this, Andy. There's many things to be upset about. In our social media climate, I won't even get into the nonsense I see every day on this app.
Well, yeah.
But I've enjoyed seeing all the memes, all the jokes about, hey, anybody who, tries to come to my school and they want to major in chemistry, I'm kicking them off the team because we're here to play football or something like that.
Football,
exactly. Yeah. And so I think of the who was it that gave the quote? Was it Dwayne Haskins? Late Dwayne Haskins who gave the Oh no, it was
it was Cardell Jones.
That's who it was. Cardell Jones.
What did they call him? Oh, what's a 12 gauge?
Yeah, he's like, I'm here to play school.
I'm here to play football, not school.
Yeah, that was great.
He didn't say that. I've just seen everyone. I'm like, I saw 3 during the break, loading up, ready to start my dynasty.
Hey,
I know.
I am not a hater like Andy. Enjoy it out there, my friends.
I'm the old man when it comes to this
Game responsibly.
One. You damn right. All right, on the other end, big weekend at IMS, Brickyard in town. Doug Boles, he joins us next. It's a Friday, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
All right, 9 o'clock hour. James Boyd in for KB. I'm Andy Sweeney. We have Mark Dighton along producing today's effort. You miss any of the show, check us out, 1075thefan.com. Again, a big thank you to everyone over at Back 9, all the sponsors and all the fans that came out yesterday. Our golf event was fantastic. It was a lot of fun. And James, I know you were there doing a little radio in the middays. He's back this morning, so we appreciate that. But drinking a Jack and Coke, Franciscan Health was there. It was all fantastic yesterday. Cannot wait to see year number 3, see how that continues to grow. Speaking of things in the area that have grown over now 3 decades, Brickyard in town this weekend. I was down by the track picking up my credential yesterday. Of course, you got practice today, NASCAR practice, and then you got the 250, the Pennzoil 250 coming up tomorrow, and then the 30th anniversary celebration, the Brickyard 400, coming up on Sunday. And to talk about that and much more, President of IMS, Doug Boles, joins us here on the Payless Liquors Hotline. Doug, good morning, sir. How are you today?
I'm good. It's sunshine in Indianapolis.
You're damn right.
It's be good when you get weather like this.
I woke up today, it was football weather, Doug. It was 57 degrees.
It is 100% football weather. I agree with that, and I'll take football weather all day long at a racetrack. So that works well for me.
You know, I hate to do this. I know I hate to bring it up with you, but I know during the Indy 500 week, that's what we talked about so much, and you guys had plans, and it all worked out, but there was weather. I mean, Doug, it looks like it's going to be 80 degrees and sunny out this weekend for you guys.
Doug, he's jinxing you.
Am I jinxing you? Or I'm sure you guys have looked at the radar, and it looks pretty good the next couple days.
You know, I've tried not to get to the point where I worry about jinxing because I would jinx myself all the time. So I just try to block that out. But I think we paid a lot of dues in May, so hopefully we get a little bit of pass this weekend,
sure,
and we can just have some normal weather and get her all done. So, but yeah, that May was a challenge for sure.
Well, Doug, I want to ask you this. You know, the anniversary of obviously the Brickyard. What has this race meant to the area and the track? And it's so cool seeing NASCAR. I know it's been road course and back to the oval this year. You know, the first time I was actually at IMS was the year that Ricky Rudd won. You know, my uncle was huge Dale Earnhardt Sr. fan, obviously, and we went out there, and that was my first time, and that was a lot of fun. What has this race meant to the area? And I don't know, you have 2 or 3 memories that you could pinpoint when you talk about NASCAR coming to IMS?
Yeah, you know, 1994 was such an iconic moment when NASCAR and Indianapolis Motor Speedway announced that Brickyard 400 would be coming here. You know, nothing but Indy cars on this track really for the first, really since 1909 until 1994. So that was a really big deal for the sport, really big deal for the city. And then even recently, while the numbers aren't quite the same in terms of attendance for the Brickyard 400 as it was back in the day, it's still a $150 million plus weekend in terms of economic impact for this community. So it's super important. You know, getting back to the oval for us is a big deal because if we're going to celebrate the 30th anniversary of Jeff Gordon's first win, you got to do it on the oval. And our fans seem to be pretty excited about that. I think our attendance on Sunday is going to be better than it's been every year, all the way back to 2017, which is huge for us to actually begin to try and turn this race around and bring it back to its glory. And it's going to take us some years to do that. We're going to need some help with the on-track product this weekend. Hopefully it's good, but I can't believe how much the fans have embraced it. Memories for me, that first one for sure. Dale Earnhardt Sr. winning in 1995 was a big deal. And, you know, you mentioned Ricky Rudd. He'll be here this weekend. I can't wait to see him.
Oh,
he can't wait to come back. So we're going to get about 16, 17 of the drivers who competed in the first Brickyard 400 are going to be here for a class photo on Sunday, and Ricky's going to be one of them. You don't see Ricky around a lot, so getting him to come out here is going to be a big deal.
Doug, I was going to ask about that. How cool will it be to just sort of commemorate the moment and really add to what has been a great season for a great year, rather, for Indianapolis with so many different events coming through with All-Star Weekend for the NBA. You had, obviously, the Olympic swimming trials here, and then, obviously, to get back the Brickyard 400.
No, it's great, and you touch on something I think that is really important, which is how great this community is in celebrating and putting on big events. It's not just the venues; it's our entire community, even the people that live here. Just the way that they talk about our community, just the pride I think we all have in Central Indiana when we put on these big events. So whether it's the NBA All-Star Game or the NCAA tournament games that we get to have here, Caitlin Clark coming. The Eclipse came through here in April,
sure,
and everybody throughout Central Indiana, big Eclipse big eclipse events going on, the swimming, the Indy 500. It is what we do well. And the 30th anniversary of the Brickyard 400 is a really cool celebration that just is one of those things that helps make the city of Indianapolis one of the coolest cities on the face of the planet.
What makes, and Doug Boles with us, President IMS on the Payless Liquors Hotline, obviously a full week of racing out there, Brickyard 400 coming up on Sunday. After this, I'll give you the rundown. The Fan, we're going to be out there a ton this weekend. The move to the Oval, what excites you about the Oval racing there, NASCAR? I know after a couple years on the road course.
Well, our history is our oval. It was what started things in 1909. It's what the first Indy 500, was in 1911, and it really is what defines who we are. What happens on that 2.5-mile oval and crossing that yard of bricks, going in counterclockwise direction instead of clockwise, like we do when we're in road course configuration. So it is really that's what makes it special is being able to compete on the oval where so many iconic drivers have won. So getting NASCAR back on the oval, these new cars, this new generation of car that hasn't been on our oval yet. Drivers like Chase Briscoe, who grew up in Indiana, drives for Tony Stewart right now, has never had a chance to race on our oval. He can't wait to get in the Cup car. And as a kid growing up, right, he wanted to race on the oval. So for him, I just can't wait to watch his story unfold here, especially driving for Tony with the team's announcement that they're going to sort of disband the team going forward after this year. So there's just a lot of great things, but it's really about the oval, and I'm just glad we're back. The Brickyard Brick Trophy is back, which is with a little bit of a twist, which is that the driver gets a trophy that's one of the unique things in motorsport, frankly, not just NASCAR. And our brick this year is actually molded using an original brick. Previously, it was just sort of a hand-created brick that was tried to look like one. We actually created a mold, so it's actually a mold of an actual brick. So I think that's going to be fun for those drivers. Big old heavy trophy that they get to take home if they pick up the win.
I do want to ask, you mentioned Caitlin Clark. How cool will it be to see her face on the hood of Josh Berry's car here in Indianapolis?
It's going to be really cool, and that's a cool announcement. When they made that announcement that she's going to be on the front of his car, and Josh is one of those young up and coming drivers who's sort of always in the mix and has a chance of winning pretty much everywhere they go right now, and it's amazing the impact that she's had on the sport of basketball, not just women's basketball. I mean, she's really helped the sport, but certainly the WNBA. You see wherever she goes, people want to see her, and it's so cool that she's here in Indianapolis in our community, and we're going to get her involved in the 500 and the 400 at some point in time. We worked with the folks at the Fever and said, well, hey, we're going to leave her alone, not ask her to come do things out here until she gets settled. And what we really want her to do, which is represent Indianapolis and the Fever around the world as she goes out and plays basketball. But it'd be cool to see her face on the hood of that car for sure.
As you mentioned, Josh, he's a little bit on the younger side, but you also have Jimmy Johnson, who's going for his fifth win here at the Brickyard 400. So when you think about how the sport has evolved, or maybe just the different generations of it, how cool will it be to obviously have some people who are like, man, this is what I grew up on, versus some of that younger crowd where they're like, man, this is my first time maybe being able to experience this.
Yeah, it is kind of cool getting all this all back because of that. You've got people that haven't really been able to experience it yet. You've got folks that remember it back in its heyday. Jimmy Johnson, obviously, like you said, with those 4 wins, wanting to tie Jeff Gordon to be the only 2 drivers in with 5 wins in the Brickyard 400. Jimmy Johnson and I, Jimmy's basically retired, and he picks and chooses the races that he wants to run, and he's excited to be back on the oval here. He and I get to do a really cool thing this weekend. We're going to celebrate Richard Petty and do a little event together celebrating Richard Petty and his involvement in the sport and what that means. So that's going to be something cool that we get to do coming up. But, yeah, combining the oval, letting the young folks see it, some of these young drivers get to compete in it, and then old guys like me who remember why the Brickyard 400 started and what it was all about, that it's going to be cool to do it again.
Yeah, 94, I was not born yet. It was a year later. Sorry about that, Doug.
Well, I was 10 years old, so, man, you weren't born yet, and you're making me old, Doug. This is my last weekend, Doug, in my 30s. Monday, I turned 40 years old. How about that? Now I feel like an old guy.
So I'm 57, and I will tell you that I still haven't gotten to a year that I go, okay, this one I don't like. I want to trade something before. The 40s you're going to have a blast in your 40s.
That's what everyone tells me.
You're going to be fine. It's one of those things you can't stop it. So you just kind of have to embrace it and try and make the best just brace the and make it the best year ever, no matter how old you are.
Doug Boles with us there, President IMS Payless Liquors Hotline. Have you got a chance? It's been since May since Kyle Larson, ran in the 500, and got in the not the jet, the helicopter, and then flew to the NASCAR race. It ended up not happening. He's going to be here trying to get his first Brickyard 400 win on Sunday. Have you talked to Kyle since May, since he pulled the double there in May?
Yeah, I've talked to him a couple times. We text quite a bit, actually. He had a great time in May. Really, just I think blown away with just the whole experience. And I don't know if you've seen as he talks about that experience.
Oh yeah,
not just about the 500. He talks about how much he loves the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the community. And that's even Kurt Busch was that way after when Kurt ran it. I think it just changes their perspective. They know how important the Brickyard 400 is, right? But when they get to see the Indy 500 and go through the pre-race and all the pomp and circumstance and the respectful way that we celebrate those men and women who've served and just the things that are so important on Memorial Day weekend, it really changes the way they view the facility and they understand the history. And Kyle was impacted that way. And certainly he brought a lot of fans along with him that hadn't experienced the 500. I've gotten handwritten notes from people who were just blown away with the experience. And just having Kyle participate was fantastic. And hopefully he'll have a great weekend, and I hope his experience is one where we just start seeing more Cup drivers try and do the same thing. And frankly, I'd love to see an IndyCar driver too try and do that double as well and do it the reverse direction.
So, Doug, I do want to ask, from a fan experience, for those who maybe haven't attended a Brickyard 400 at IMS, what can they expect, or what are some of the things where you can point to and say, hey, here's what will help you have a great time?
Well, one of the things, and that I think is an advantage. It's certainly something we're trying to make worse, frankly, is that we'll have somewhere close to 70,000 people, I'm guessing, here on Sunday, which would be, like I said, it'll be the best crowd we've had since 2017, which I think is fantastic for the sport. We begin to grow it, but because it's not 350,000 people, the ability to move around the facility and really experience different seats. We've got these flex seats, so you can check out different seats in the facility. It's a great way to experience the Speedway if you've never been for the first time. You get to see the racing. You don't feel that stress of, the second largest city in the state of Indiana being in the racetrack that we have on the 500. So that's one of the things. I think the other one is just being able to see both the Xfinity and the Cup cars racing the same weekend. You get a chance to see a couple different formats of racing, which is helpful. And then we continue to be 15 and under are free. So if you've got kids under the age of 15, bring them on in with you. We've got special seats where you can bring them in and they can sit with you for free. We have some reserve seat areas where we don't do that, but we have other special seats where you can do that. So we try and make it easy for people to bring families, make it inexpensive and affordable. So just trying to do the best we can to make it fun for folks. So the thing I just tell people, it's a great racing. It's a lot of race car driver names that but it comes without the stress of 350,000 people.
Yeah, again, get those tickets. Those flex tickets are actually pretty cool. I was looking at that last night. So practice today, racing on Saturday and Sunday. Obviously, the Brickyard coming up on Sunday as well. Doug, always appreciate the time. I know it's another long weekend, but fruits of the labor, my friend. I'm sure the event will be great. And like you said, it sounds like you're going to have a big crowd, and sounds like, there's a commitment here to continuing to grow this event and kind of get it back to the attendance it was a few decades ago. We appreciate the time. Take care. We'll catch up down the road. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, there we go. Doug Boles, President IMS. Should be a fun weekend out there. I wanted just to throw out there real quick our schedule. The Fan is going to be out there Saturday beginning, you'll like this, Saturday at 11 a.m. We'll have coverage from the Brickyard. Greg Rakestraw, Kurt Darling going to be out there. So that's going to be fun. And then the qualifying is at 1 o'clock. The Xfinity Series, like you just mentioned, that race is going to be at 3 o'clock. So all that coverage on Saturday right here on the Fan. And then on Sunday, pre-race coverage, again, Greg Rakestraw, John Herrick going to be out there beginning at noon. 1:30 coverage of the Brickyard 400. We'll have that at 1:30. And then all the post-race coverage, live post-race coverage beginning around 6 o'clock. You know how this can be. It's all flexible around 6 o'clock as well. So great stuff. Appreciate it from Doug. And I've been to Hope to get out there this weekend a little bit. Going to go pick up my credential and have a good time.
Jake and Jimmy out there today as well.
Who's going to be out there? Jake and Jimmy?
Yes.
Okay. I figured. I thought I remember them saying that. Jake mentioned, I think even yesterday with you guys, that they were on remote, and I just assumed, well, they're going to be out there for the Brickyard. So
exactly.
There you go.
I do want to throw it out there, though. Doug was saying if you're 15 and under, you can get in for free.
Dude, that's awesome.
How much do they verify this? Because I remember growing up,
right?
And if everyone remembers like Old Country Buffet, and they had like the kids limit, if you're 10 or whatever you eat for a certain price.
It was 10 or 12.
Man,
yeah.
I was 10 for like 4 years. Seriously.
Did you look young?
Yeah, I mean, I was always small. So I'm a skinny guy now,
right.
so I was always pretty short.
How old are you? I have no idea.
I'm 28.
You're 28.
I'm 28.
I can see you maybe look a little bit younger.
Yeah.
I have no frame of reference anymore on anyone's age.
Yeah,
None.
Our 3 daughters, like our youngest, like if you're under, I think 2 years old, you get into Disney World for free. So she's 3 now, but we've been pulling off the 2 year. You're 2 at Disney. Oh, okay. But yeah,
Disney doesn't make you verify that.
No, like getting on a flight.
Brother, I can't believe that.
Getting on a flight, they ask you obviously for the birth certificate and everything like that. So that card is out of the bag at that point. But if they're not checking, they're not that concerned.
I can't believe Disney, Disneyland, Disney World tried to get every damn dollar out of a family that they're not verified with the Dykens.
But the worst is with like when I was a little kid, you want to be older, you want to be bigger, and so if you get up to some gate and your parents like, oh, he's 6, you're like, no, I'm not, I'm 7, I'm gonna be 8 and wherever.
That's a good way to not eat again.
Exactly, and they're like, shut your trap. Well, we were trying to get a good meal here, so I'm learning as I get older to take your cut your corners every now and then.
It's funny. I don't know if we're going to get Mason, who's our 10-month-old, out there, but he went to some of the practices for the 500, and we just put the earphones on him, went right to sleep. That's fantastic. So
it's a good life. No bills at that age.
I think tickets start at like $60. Again, that flex ticket, you can get different views. You can kind of wander a little bit and get different views of the track. So that'll be a lot of fun. Again, we'll have all the coverage right here on The Fan.
By the way, the global outage has hit the Vegas Sphere. The Vegas Sphere is displaying the message now. That the Windows.
Oh no, the PC message that there's a
That's
problem.
actually crazy. Oh wow.
Well, how are all the boomers going to get to see the Grateful Dead for the 19th time? I'm kidding, everyone. I'm kidding.
I'm going to call my parents and see what they're up to in New York and see if they're able to do all the things that they had planned for today.
What are they doing in New York?
I mean, I know they were going to a...
Like they do like Empire State Building and all that stuff.
Yeah, they're doing a tour. They're also going to Luke Combs' concert at MetLife.
Okay, wow. They better get in line for traffic.
I know, exactly. They're also going to take a tour of Madison Square Garden because my dad's a diehard Knicks fan.
Oh, is he really?
Yeah, so they're doing a bunch of fun stuff that obviously I am on the outskirts of, so I will have to get updates throughout their trip.
Is he an annoying Knicks fan?
No, he's actually pretty reasonable. I think he's pessimistic, so I'll
he's in the minority, though.
Yeah, so I tell him, I say, hey, man, you got Mikal Bridges. You guys are going to win a championship. He's like, no, we're not. And I'm like, dude, you're supposed to be believing in your team.
Yeah, come on. What did you – well, the other 99% of the Knicks fans, they think they're going to win it every year. So,
exactly.
It's okay to have a couple guys that are Knicks fans that aren't, chanting after a one win in the Eastern Conference
he's
playoffs.
A unique fan, man, because he also was not on the Jalen Brunson took a pay cut for us. He's like, this guy is delusional. Get all your money now.
Really? I was going to ask you, here's the annoying thing. I said this with KB. The Knicks are, Pacer fans already annoyed by the Knicks, okay?
Yeah.
I mean,
they're rivals.
There's a rival there, you understand. But it's getting ready to be even worse.
Oh,
because
yes.
now Bridges has taken less money, Brunson has taken less money, and Bridges says in the next couple years he may take less money. So now you have this team, this Knicks team, that it's like they're a hard-working team focused on defense. It's the New York hard-working. And already Pacer fans are annoyed by that rhetoric. And then you throw on top of it, everyone's going to see them as the great guys in sports because they're willing to take less money. And Brunson's just like Derek Jeter, and he's just like Tom Brady. I mean, that's what you're going to hear.
Yeah, we're going to hear that until he doesn't win. And then it's like we're going to look back in 5 or 6 years, 10 years, and say, oh, you missed out on $100 million for a chance to win a ring that you never won. And so that's the part where I'm like, man, there's been plenty of champions that have won, and they have gotten paid all of their money.
Yes, sir.
And so we'll see if it works out, but I do like the pettiness between the franchises. And they're both on the rise. I mean, obviously the Pacers have never won an NBA championship. The Knicks, in my opinion, may as well have never won because they didn't do it in my lifetime.
Right.
It's been since 1973. And so they're both on the rise. And they're going to be duking it out for a chance to get back to that stage and a chance to win it. I'm just saying, I don't know if I'm giving up $100 million to do that. And I get it. People are like,
you're not giving up $100 million. Yeah.
He's like, they can recoup that. And his agent said when he gets to this age and the TV deals.
They can't recoup it.
He's 27, you're banking on a 6'1", 6'2" guard to still be great in his early 30s and to have a team pay him $400 million and get paid $80 million a year when he's an aging, smaller guard. I'll believe it when I see it. So he took a great home discount for them, and we'll see if it pays off. But again, I'm not giving money back to a billionaire's team ever.
Well, especially James Dolan. The funny thing is, over the next couple of years,
it better work. It better work.
That was, I was thinking, it better work. Otherwise, you're Jalen Brunson. You gave up all the money. You still didn't win the NBA championship.
And again, God forbid you get hurt or something like that. They're not going to give you this $400 million and you're going to get $80 million a year. That sounds great, but to me, that's like the Wemby era where, like, when he starts getting his max deals, we'll see more of those huge contracts.
Yeah. No, you know what's funny?
Tyrese actually might be in line. He's young enough. Tyrese Halliburton, his next max deal.
His next deal will be massive as well.
Yeah, it's
been great for Halliburton. He got the max deal, and then he made all-team NBA, so he got 30% more. And then in 4 years-ish, he'll get another
He's going to get
contract.
$80 million a year to play basketball.
He'll get something ridiculous. You know what's funny? Brunson did what he did. We as a sports community don't care about that anymore. We didn't mention that one time with Halliburton or Pascal Siakam. Like, hey, if Pascal Siakam loves being here so much, if he loves Rick Carlisle's system, and he wants to make a run at the championship, why doesn't he take a little bit less money so the Pacers can go out and sign another player? That's not a conversation that we had one time. Not one time, James.
No, and I understand. I know Jake Query was pushing this a lot, like, hey, do we want to, is Siakam a max player? It's like, well, in today's climate, it seems like if you have one or two good seasons, you get a max deal. So all that to say, it better work for Jalen Brunson. And then again, the pettiness in me is like, run it back next season, Eastern Conference Finals, Game 7, the Pacers beat them again. Oh, my goodness. How funny would that be? I mean, obviously Boston will be there as well. I don't know if it'll be the conference finals, but if they're in the playoff setting again and you did all of this and Mikal Bridges is there and they have OG Anunoby and everyone's making all this money and they're taking pay cuts.
Yeah, OG didn't take less, by the way.
No, he got all his money.
He got his
bag. You have all these pieces and it still doesn't work because you lost to the Pacers, who, by the way, even in our athletic rankings, they're like number 10.
I saw that.
And they're like, a playoff team. They're not really a contender.
Them being in the top 10, they're not in the top 10 in all power rankings.
I know. So, exactly. So I'm just saying they're still not getting that respect of being in the conference finals. If they get back there and they knock off, the Knicks on the way there or in the conference finals, that would be really funny to look back on.
Yeah, no, listen,
I root for chaos.
I'm rooting for chaos at all times as well. I wanted to get your thoughts. That's James Boyd of The Athletic hanging out with us. We'll get to our pop quiz here in about 10 minutes. It's a freebie Friday, so we're absolutely doing the pop quiz. I did look at it. I peeked at Scotty's pop quiz, and there's a couple on here that are not going to be easy.
Scotty's a tough cookie sometimes.
There's some that are good. But, there's one that starts out, I won't give you the gentleman's name, such and such was born 101 years ago. So that some of the questions are not going to be easy on a freebie Friday.
That takes me out of it already.
We'll get to that in 10 minutes.
It'll be even harder because no one can access their stuff with the Microsoft outage.
So no cheating out there, listeners.
Fair enough. I am waiting to see how this is going to affect my life, and I'm terrified it's going to affect my life in some way. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. What is your opinion on Caitlin Clark not in the three-point contest? Then I'll give you mine. But I mean, obviously it's come out now. We asked Lynn Dunn this, and she hinted that Caitlin turned it down along with Sabrina Ionescu. The both of them turned it down. You have any hot take on this? Again, festivities coming up this weekend for the women.
I would like to see her in it. I thought she should have been in it, especially with the Olympic break coming up. You're going to be off for a while anyways. I understand there's a lot on her plate, but dang, Caitlin, we want to see you. You're the star. You draw us in. However, they have to pay them more if they want them to do it.
Okay, people need to hear this because I was wondering this, and I meant to look it up, and I forgot to, and James is bringing this. How much do you make if you win the three-point contest at WNBA All-Star Weekend? Go ahead.
So if you win, you get $2,700, which isn't obviously a lot of money for Caitlin Clark. And then I believe you get $1,000 if you just participate. So to me, the number has to be like, hey, if you participate, you're getting like $25,000 minimum if you win, something like that. And obviously these things might change with new TV contracts, TV deals, CBA, all those things. But for someone like Caitlin Clark doing a three-point activity, and then obviously we know with her, if she doesn't win it, she's going to get scrutinized till the cows come home. For $2,700 is not really incentivizing her at all. She's got, a Nike deal that's worth, 200 times that. So that to me is where we see some of the disparity.
It's such a small amount.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right here. It is $2,575.
Oh man, yeah.
I mean, that's not enough money, man.
Listen, I'm with you. Now, I did look it up during the break. The winner on the men's side. Now, listen, I understand. I mean, listen, the NBA has paid for the WNBA for decades. I mean, the NBA and the WNBA, the financials there are not the same. But just to give you a comparison, the three-point contest winner gets $50,000 in the NBA. I believe second place is $35,000, third place is $25,000. So if you get top three, you're getting a nice little chunk of change there. And maybe for Sabrina maybe fits into this. I know she has a big Nike deal.
Exactly.
Perhaps her, Caitlin Clark, and there's a handful of others that $25,000 isn't probably a huge deal.
Right.
But for the majority of the WNBA, that might be half your salary.
And it still would be a respectable
season.
amount, in my opinion. You got to also factor in the WNBA, they play 40 games. The NBA, they play 82. So there's obviously more revenue
It's
made.
a totally different league.
We have
right.
more games. But here's my hot take.
Okay. By the way, the All-Star game, the dunk contest winner gets $100,000 in the NBA.
Yeah.
$100,000.
Not bad. But my hot take is, so we obviously were here in Indianapolis when they had All-Star Weekend. We saw Sabrina and Steph Curry shoot against each other.
Right.
That was fantastic. I need that 2-on-2. They talked about it in that same night. It was
did they?
Brought up, hey, what would it be like to see Caitlin Clark and Sabrina shoot against, at the time it was Steph Curry and Klay Thompson because they were still teammates. It could be somebody else because they departed and Klay Thompson's in Dallas. But I would love to see that. Her, and I don't care if it's, one woman, one man versus another woman and man, but if Caitlin Clark is in the NBA All-Star Weekend festivities, that would be really, really cool to see.
The only thing I'll say, and listen, Caitlin Clark seemingly, and listen, she gave us 10 minutes of her time when she did not have to, okay, of which we are grateful for. Yeah. I will not follow this on Saturday. And if she were in it, and probably Sabrina as well, I would. So I'm one of those people that will absolutely be swayed by her not being a part of it. And then the other thing I would say, this past year, and I looked this up, and I, of course, I've already lost this, but, this past year, you had what? Trae Young, Karl Anthony Towns, we've had Donovan Mitchell, we've seen Steph and Clay. My point being, we had Halliburton. My point being, the, top 10, top 15 players are in the three-point contest on the NBA side. Now, it's not like that in the slam dunk contest. You had Jacob Toppin, who spent, the majority of the time in the G League.
They go get Mac McClung every year because they're like, hey, you played a couple NBA games. We need you to go out here and win this thing again.
He was in the G League.
And they were actively trying to get Jaylen Brown to win it. That was the most egregious scoring I've seen in my life. I was like, what are they? Like, these dunks he was doing were terrible.
I know.
And they're trying to push him because he was a star.
It's usually old-timers who are holding, it's Julius Erving who's holding up, who's giving everyone a 10. That would be the only thing I would say is it does hurt the event. And
I do have a bit of news for you, though.
Yeah, give me the news.
So Erica Wheeler, who was participating in the skills challenge for WNBA weekend, Indiana Fever Guard.
Okay.
She just tweeted that my flight got delayed.
Oh, boy.
Y'all better not cancel this flight to Phoenix at Delta.
Oh, boy.
I better not miss participating in the WNBA skills challenge. So this is also affecting our very own players and stars.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you're just waking up, if you're flying today, maybe you're not flying today. just a complete mess. What is it even, Mark? It's a Microsoft issue,
something. Yeah, I don't
and
know.
so
if you're waking up, go back to sleep.
Yeah, all
the
these platforms for banks and broadcasting companies, and of course the airlines. I know they grounded the 3 major airlines have already grounded today. Now that was within the last hour, so I don't know if that's changed. I have seen some of the news stations. I think, James, you brought this up during the break. How would you love being at the airport right now and the local news comes out there to do a live shot on how crappy things are going?
If it isn't, I mean, the only time I've ever seen the news at the airport was when they had the basketball court for All-Star
Great
Weekend.
point. Otherwise, it's bad.
Exactly, it's bad news. And so Erica has about a little under 12 hours to try to get to Phoenix for the All-Star Weekend festivities. Again, she's competing in the Skills Challenge, and obviously it's a big deal for her. She also was an All-Star in the past, and so she's familiar with the setup, the layout, and we'd like to see all of the Indiana Fever represented wherever they can be, because she is also one of, I believe, 4 representatives, because they do have 3 All-Stars with Kelsey and Aaliyah and Caitlin.
Right. I don't know if she's going to make it.
Fingers crossed.
I got to be honest. My brother was supposed to fly out today from Indy. I don't know if that's going to happen either. So we'll find out. All right, pop quiz here in just a minute. It's a Freebie Friday. Before we do that, morning check down.
The Morning Checkdown, brought to you by Butler Bulldogs Basketball. Season tickets are on sale now. Order by August 1st for your shot at the best seats in Hinkle Fieldhouse. Visit butlersports.com/buy tickets.
All right, the Pacers fall to 1-3 in the Summer League. It's all right. It's just a Summer League, but they didn't shoot the ball well at all. 25% from three-point range. The Pacers fall to the Nuggets 86-71. The game, quite frankly, never really close. Jarris Walker, 13 points, 11 assists in the loss. After the game, Jarris Walker was asked about what he needed to improve on this summer. Here's what he had to say.
I got better and better each and every game. I learned more every game. Starting to read defenses better, just slowing the game down. Just less turnovers, just trying to keep the game simple.
Yeah, I continually, it's funny, with Jarris Walker, I was interested in, how he would play, would he make the rotation for this coming season? I leave Summer League, and I doubt he plays in their final game, James. I leave Summer League, where do they think, if he can make the rotation, is he going to play? Do they think, we thought he was a 4. Okay, is he a 2? Is he a 3? If he's a 2, then we'll start talking about him taking minutes from other guys. If he's more of a 3, does he take Aaron Nesmith some of his minutes? Those are things that we can talk about. Tristan Newton, he had 15 in the loss again, 86-71, your final last night. Major League Baseball, second half of the season underway tonight. Reds open in Washington. That one at 6:45. Cubs host the Diamondbacks at 2:20. Cardinals, Braves, 7:20. Indianapolis Indians, they open a 3-game set in Omaha tonight at 8:05. Let's see what else we have. IndyCar in Toronto. That one Sunday at 1 o'clock. And then we talked to Doug Boles, all the Brickyard stuff this weekend. It's going to be practice today, the 250 tomorrow, the Brickyard 400 coming up on Sunday. We'll have it all right here on The Fan. Last one, Shane Lowry, still your leader at the Open Championship. He's through 16 now on his second round. He is 6 under. Daniel Brown, 5 under. Justin Rose at 3 under. All right, let's do it. 317-239-1070 pop quiz. We'll do it next year on this Friday.
Can you handle the pressure? Sharpen your pencils. It's time for the Pop Quiz with KB and Andy. Brought to you by Jiffy Lube, Indiana's favorite oil change since 1985.
All right, Freebie Friday, 239-1070. So if nothing else, even if you go 0 for 5, we'll get you that oil change here on this Friday on the Pop Quiz. It's always funny, even when KB is here, but James, you did it. James Boyd from The Athletic, and I did it as well. And I always ask Scotty, and then I butchered the name. Whenever there's a name we don't know, we ask Scotty. He tells us the name, and you did it. Like, you did it for a couple names, and I did it, and it doesn't matter. We'll just forget anyway.
That probably is true.
I already forgot, I think, the name I asked him that we'll get to. So, all right, so a Freebie Friday here on the Wake Up Call. James, I'm gonna have you do the honors. You pick a caller 1 to, what do we have? 1 to 6. Go ahead.
5.
Ooh. Caller number 5. Who do we have, Mark?
Q, our buddy Q.
Q, good morning. How are you today?
Good morning, Andy. And I just want to let you know, how about them Cowboys?
Oh, Q,
oh Lord have mercy.
Don't do
Settle
this
down
to me.
just a little bit.
You settle down. I can't wait for Trey Lance to be your quarterback next year.
Oh my goodness.
Get your damn act together.
Daniel Jones.
Q, you'll love this. There is I forget who it was nationally that was like, after the Giants fizzle out with Daniel Jones, they should sign Dak Prescott. I'm like, y'all trying to kill me? Are you trying? I don't need this. I already have high blood pressure. I don't need this. Well, Q, you ready to go? You ready to get this oil change?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's go. Let's hit the music. Question number 1. Name the last American to win the Open Championship. Of course, you can also call it the British Open happening right now. The last American, was it Jordan Spieth, Colin Morikawa, Zach Johnson, or Brian Harmon?
Let's go B.
You want to go with Morikawa?
Yep.
All right, it's a Freebie Friday. We'll keep it moving. Go ahead. Question number 2.
All right, question number 2. Which golf course has hosted the most Open Championships? Prestwick, St. Andrews, Royal St. George's, or Muirfield?
Can you give me that list again, please?
We have A, Prestwick, B, St. Andrews, C, Royal St. George's, or D, Muirfield?
Let's go B.
B.
I feel like that was the easiest one on the list.
Lock it in.
Yeah. Maybe this one is. Question number 3, Q. At the Olympic break, who leads the Indiana Fever in scoring average? Caitlin Clark, Nalissa Smith, Kelsey Mitchell, Aaliyah Boston.
Is this a trick question?
It is not. Don't overthink it.
Caitlin.
All right, number 4. The LA Clippers reportedly will send Russell Westbrook to the Utah Jazz in a sign-and-trade agreement for Chris Dunn. The Jazz are expected to buy out Westbrook's contract, and Westbrook will then sign with the Denver Nuggets. Which of the following teams has Westbrook not played for in his NBA career? He's been a journeyman.
Yes, he has.
So, is it A, the Houston Rockets, B, the Washington Wizards, C, the Phoenix Suns, or D, did he play for all 3 of those teams, the Rockets, the Wizards, and the Suns?
Let me see. He played for OKC, traded to Washington, went to Houston. Let's go Phoenix.
All right, lock it in.
What did he say?
Phoenix.
He said Phoenix? Okay. All right. You're doing pretty good here. Alex Hannum. All right, question number 5. Alex Hannum was born 101 years ago today. He won NBA championships as a head coach of the St. Louis Hawks all the way back in 1958 and the Philadelphia 76ers in 1967. Hannum would go on to win an ABA championship with the Oakland Oaks in 1969. One other head coach has won an NBA and an ABA championship. Is it Larry Brown, Bill Sharman, Kevin Lockery, or Jack Ramsey?
Let's go with Dr. Jack Ramsey.
All right, not bad, Q. Stay on the line. We'll get you your oil change on this Freebie Friday. So what did he end up getting? 3 out of 5? Did he get 3 out of 5? Is that what he got? He got number 1 wrong.
That is correct.
He got number 1 wrong. Brian Harmon is the last American to win the Open Championship, and he just did it in 2003. And I know why Scotty put that on there. Because
Or 2023.
Or 2023. I know why he did that. A, it's recent, and B, nobody remembers Brian Harmon winning the Open Championship. I mean, it's the truth.
We got
the truth
Andy
on the
Hayden
list
this morning,
I mean,
man.
no one remembers Brian Harmon winning the championship. Now, he went Morikawa, which is the one I think a lot of people, because Speed doesn't win very much anymore, and neither does Zach Johnson. So he got number 1 wrong. He got number 2 right. St. Andrews got number 3 right. Caitlin Clark, although it's pretty close between her and Caitlin Mitchell. Clark averaging 17.1. Kelsey Mitchell averaging 16.9. Russell Westbrook has not played for the Phoenix Suns. I got to be honest. Jamal Adams, got picked up by the Titans.
Yeah.
And it's like, Colts fans are like, we need a safety. It's like, Jamal Adams does nothing for me going to the Tennessee
he's
Titans.
Not the answer.
That's how I feel about this trade. Russell Westbrook, I mean, I know it's the Nuggets. He's fine being a bench player
I think
for
it's
the
going to
Nuggets.
go the same way it always does. He's going to give him energy. He's going to give him focus. And he's going to be really good in his role until he has to shoot the basketball.
And then he's going to miss a bunch of shots. Yeah. So Russell Westbrook kind of washed at this point. But, again, he'll be the 8th, 9th man on the Nuggets team. Alex Hannum, the last one. Bill Sharman is the only other coach to win an NBA and an ABA championship. He did so NBA in 1972 with the Lakers, and in the ABA, the Utah Stars in 1971. So good stuff there. All right, we'll take a break. We'll come back. We'll wrap up Friday's show here, 93.5, 107.5 The Fan.
It's the Wake Up Call with KB and Andy on 93.5 and 107.5. The Fan.
I appreciate you hanging out with us. One more segment to go. James Boyd in for KB. James from The Athletic. James, appreciate you waking up. I know it's a day off. Things last weekend before football really sets in. Reminder, we will be out there as the Colts start training camp on Thursday. We'll actually be out there on move-in day on Wednesday as well. So next week, Wednesday and Thursday, we'll be out there for training camp. That should be a lot of fun.
You gonna lift some boxes? Somebody says like, DeForest Buckner says, "Hey, can you grab that TV for me? You can help him out."
They did say, what did Pat Mahomes say? He actually brought a TV so he could play the college football game. Did he say that? And Call of Duty?
Yeah,
I think he said.
I saw somebody say like if that was Kyler Murray, people would be losing their minds. But
yeah, Mahomes wins the Super Bowl every damn year.
Exactly. So he can do whatever he wants.
He literally can do whatever he wants. You working on anything as we get ready, or anything you want to promote?
I have some things I'm working on, but for the most part, I'm just really getting ready for camp and kind of breaking down, some of the questions that we have. This will be one of our times to talk to Chris Ballard. We'll talk to him, I believe, sometime next week. And so, obviously, I'm going to ask.
It's a big deal. Yeah.
How do you feel about your team, off season, things like that? How different does it feel for JT coming in with a new contract, Anthony Richardson's shoulder, your secondary?
Right.
So, I would say that's the next big thing to look out for from all of us. Even Kevin Bowen, I'm sure, will be there asking questions. Alongside me.
It is besides Anthony Richardson, some of the Richardson stuff. Obviously, you hope that he is healthy. There's not really much drama this year, obviously compared to last year. But
I was knee deep in the CBA last summer.
I'm sure you were. The Colts enter with they had the team that Ballard has said he feels good with. He thought that the secondary has grown up. You do hope, there's little stories. You hope maybe, at least for me, I've been kind of a guy who's back Jelani Woods, kind of watching him at Virginia in college. So, there's stories like that. We started, to me, it's all about Anthony Richardson, health, play, it's go time, and the secondary. To me, those are the two big stories, obviously, that I'll be watching. I wanted your thoughts. Speaking of drama, I know it's a couple days old, but I wanted to get your thoughts. Brandon Ayuk, it's interesting. We were talking during the break. He's trying what other players have tried in the past, right? Even Jonathan Taylor, and that is, hey, maybe I want to trade. I want a new contract, whatever it may be. And, when I look at it, you look at a guy like Brandon Ayuk or even Devontae Adams, who is in a different spot. He's on a bad team. He signed a big deal with a bad team, kind of knowing you were taking the money, being on a bad team that hasn't had an answer at quarterback now for many years. You left Aaron Rodgers and went to Derek Carr. I mean, and you knew Derek Carr wasn't going to be there for the long haul. But Ayuk and Adams are interesting because it's the difference between the NBA and the NFL. NBA stars, they can talk their way to get off a team, right? They can get traded.
It doesn't matter how much money's left, how many years.
Yeah, you can throw a fit, and they will be like, okay, we will work to make sure that we can trade you and make that work. That usually is not the way it is in the NFL. What do you make of the Ayuk situation? And then, to me, there's things that you can bash Ballard on, but I saw a lot of, what are the Colts? The Colts need to go get Brandon Ayuk, and I just did not see it that way. If you're going to add a guy like Brandon Ayuk to this team, you weren't going to pay Michael Pittman Jr., and you probably weren't going to pay a running back either. So Do you want Jonathan Taylor or do you want Brandon Ayuk? That's how I positioned it.
Yeah, I think that would be more of a shock value move than an actual smart one. I think I tweeted the same thing out a couple days ago when the news initially broke. On a tangent real quick, in fairness to Devontae Adams, his agent and him have come out and said they want to be with the Raiders. They're going to try to make it work there. Obviously, Brandon Ayuk is like, get me paid or get me out of here. So I want to just run this by you.
Okay.
Here's some of the reason why, at least financially, I don't think it'll work. He has a year left on his rookie deal, and I broke it out all down. I have it pulled up from my story last year with Jonathan Taylor. This is how ridiculous it is in the CBA. So if he skips out training camp practices, that's $40,000 a day. And I believe it could also increase. If he, holds out during the season, that's $784,000 a week.
Wow.
Of his $14.1 million deal for this season.
Plus, you're flushing a season because then it'll take you time to get back in shape. 2-3 weeks to get back and everything else.
Just hear me out. And on top of that, you could get fined $44,000 for each day you miss work on top of your forfeited check. And then on top of that, you have to, in a nutshell, I can't get too into the weeds here on air because it's like all this legal jargon, but you basically have to play 6 games to get an accrued season and honor your contract. So you can't hold out for a bunch of games and be like, all right, well, I didn't want to play for you at all. That's not how it works. You could even say you're hurt. It still doesn't work like that. You have to see your season through and play at least 6 games. So all that to say, the team still has a ton of leverage against Brandon Ayuk, just like the Colts did. And really, to me, and looking back on it, I believe, and I can't say for certain because we'll never really know, but I think JT got paid because we got to the first 4 weeks of the season, and the Colts thought, hey, wait a second, we might actually be good with Anthony Richardson. And then they thought, if we get these two together, pay this dude, we're going to be, in the playoffs, and we could make a run this year.
Sure.
And then, obviously, the week that JT comes back is the same week that Anthony Richardson get hurt. I truly believe if Anthony Richardson got hurt 1 week earlier, they're not paying JT that money.
I tell you, it's a good thing to bring up. You might not be wrong.
I mean, why else pay him?
We'll never know. And then going back to something you said, you have to play 6 games for it to count as a year. We talked about that with Jonathan Taylor.
Exactly.
Because we're like, okay, if you're going to hold out and then you compile any sort of injury and you're just a running back, we saw him have a hand injury. What was it during the season?
Exactly.
You're not going to get your 6 games.
Another 3 games. And so all of that to say it is a huge risk. And then even then, the team could argue that, hey, no, you didn't really honor your contract because you only showed up and played the minimum of 6 games. It goes to an arbitrator. And then basically it's a 50-50 shot that you get your season. Because if you don't, for those out there listening, the way it works is your contract will basically freeze. You don't become a free agent. They don't have to use the franchise tag on you next year. And you owe them another season, and you're a year older. So all that to say, I think the only way that Brandon Ayuk, if he really wants out, he just shows up and says, I hate this team. I don't want to be here. I don't care if we win or lose. Get me out of here. And then at some point, you're like, if the guy doesn't want to be on your team and you got everyone else pulling in a different direction, you have to, in my opinion, move on from that player and try to recoup something for him.
I agree. I agree. It's the only move.
But I also don't think that it would work that well because other teams are going to be like, wait, this dude might quit on us if he's unhappy. So I don't know.
And the Niners are in a spot to where they know. I've heard a lot of people. This would maybe be the other Deebo Samuel. Maybe this is the final year of Deebo Samuel. Ayuk plays out this year, then he gets paid. Then, at some point, Purdy's going to get paid as well. The Niners, the last couple years, they draft some good players. They've had to pay some good players, but I'm with you. I don't think there's going to be too much that happens. Now, the flip side is he does get traded. And, I know New England sniffed around. He goes to a team that's terrible that has no quarterback.
Hey, for $100 million, I'll probably do it.
And that ain't going to be the life, San Francisco, which is one of the better teams in the entire league. James, appreciate it, brother.
Anytime.
Take care. James Boyd from The Athletic. We're back at it on Monday. Everyone have a good, safe weekend here on The Fan.